Chapter 956. This man's strength shouldn't be too bad. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare to show off unless there was a hole in his head. However, he was facing Nan Gong and Gong Sun. Nan Gong was the card on the surface, while Gong Sun was the hidden card. This was because Gong Sun hadn't fought for many years. Everyone was almost done for. This old man used to be very powerful. Over the years, most of the time, only this man stayed by Qin Chang'an's side. Maybe because Qin Chang'an's level was getting higher and higher, no one dared to attack him unscrupulously. So most of the time, Gong Sun was idle and took care of the Qin family quietly, so that everyone gradually forgot about him and thought that he was just an ordinary old housekeeper of the Qin family. They did not know that most of the Qin family's current foundation was built by Gong Sun. Maybe the achievements of the Chang and family were too dazzling, so others also forgot the Qin family's own strength. However, what Gong Sun did not expect was that these people, who had been cultivated by him, now dared to take the risk of betraying the Qin family. They were really ambitious. Gong Sun naturally would not allow such people to exist, so now he personally dealt with the traitor. After the man ran away, Nan Gong said indignantly, "Uncle Gong Sun, did you let him go just like that? He's just a small fry. We don't need to vent our anger on him. Otherwise, there will be some small troubles. Remember, the purpose of our coming to Dalian this time is to solve the problem of Song Shirshin. Everything else is secondary," Gong Sun said bluntly. If he could not even deal with Song Shirshin, he would not be able to explain to Qin Shang when he went back. Nan Gong asked curiously, "Uncle Gong Sun, what should we do next?" "Don't worry. Wait until I find out who Song Shirshin has seen recently. Then I will know who is supporting Song Shirshin," Gong Sun said slowly. How could Song Shirshin not have his own people around him? Qin Chang'an did not have time to worry about these small things, but the Qin family's affairs were all handled by Gong Sun. How could he let these elders be the local tyrants? Naturally, he had already placed spies around them, but he had not contacted these spies yet. Who knew that Song Shirshin could not sit still anymore? After the two of them finished talking about these things, Debao and Airbao rushed back. They were not really stupid. After going out for a while, they felt that something was wrong. Wasn't this a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain? After they left, only Mr. Gong Sun and Nan Gong Meiji were left in the courtyard. These people's target was obviously Mr. Gong Sun and Nan Gong Meiji. It was definitely not for them. If it was for them, they would have made a move long ago. Why would they choose this time? After they came to their senses, they hurried back and met outside the yard. After chatting for a while, they were all shocked and rushed to the living room. Seeing that Mr. Gong Sun and Nan Gong Meiji were safe and sound, they heaved a sigh of relief. Debao said with some lingering fear, "It scared me. I thought they were trying to lure us away. Fortunately, they are all right." Gong Sun smiled faintly and said, "It's just a diversion. That's why you've fallen into the trap. You call yourselves tigers? I really don't know how Uncle Zhou teaches you. Hurry up and fix the circuit." Nan Gong Meiji snorted coldly. After that, she went straight back to her room to rest. It was estimated that nothing else would happen tonight. Debao and Airbao looked at each other and were a little confused. What did Nan Gong Meiji mean? Why was she so hot-tempered? Weren't they fine? Airbao could not help but ask, "Mr. Gong Sun, what on earth happened?" Since Gong Sun had nothing to do, he told them what had happened. After listening to the end, the two of them were a little stunned. They had thought that Nan Gong Meiji was a weak girl who was not strong enough to trust a chicken. At most, she was a little cold. However, weren't all beauties like that? They did not know that Nan Gong Meiji was a hidden master. This was a little unbelievable. After hearing this, Debao was stunned for a long time and said, "Mr. Gong Sun, do you mean that Nan Gong Meiji is also a master? How powerful is she?" Gong Sun did not hide it. He said with a smile, "How powerful is she? Even if you join forces, you may not be a match for her, right?" Hearing this answer, Debao and Bao did not come to their senses for a long time. Oh my God! In Song Ruyu's house in Beijing. This was the first time that Qin Sheng had been to Song Ruyu's house. Song Ryu had taken the initiative to invite him, which made him feel somewhat flattered. This meant that Song Ryu was accepting him more and more. The style of Song Ryu's house was very simple. It was not too luxurious, similar to that of most ordinary people's houses. It was a relatively simple style. Most of the furniture was made of logs. The only difference was that there was a huge bookshelf in the living room, which was filled with all kinds of books and materials. Even the tea table was full of books. However, they were all neatly arranged. Qin Sheng said with a smile, "There are so many books in your house." Song Ryu's biggest hobby was reading, not to mention that she often borrowed books from the library and various archives. That was why she could be so outstanding. It was because she worked hard enough. Song Ryu said naturally, "Just sit here for a while. I'm going to take a shower." She did not feel embarrassed at all. On the contrary, Qin Sheng was a little flustered. What did she mean? Was she testing him? Or did she mean something else? Qin Sheng couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. Song Ryu took a bottle of water from the refrigerator and went to the master bedroom to take a shower. Qin Sheng had nothing to do, so he went through the books on Song Ryu's bookshelf. Although he liked reading, he had less and less time to read these days. He really needed to reflect on himself. Reading could help a person to have a comprehensive understanding of himself and constantly improve his cognitive ability in all aspects. Therefore, successful people would take time to read no matter how busy they were. Qin Sheng had been busy recently, so he could only take time to read occasionally. The books on Song Ryu's bookshelf covered too many genres. Most of them were historical books. There were more than 20 different books on the history of the Ming Dynasty. There were even more books on modern history, which added up to 2 whole rows. Then there were books on policy, which are the only ones that Qin Sheng could not read. It was really boring. However, how could Song Ryu calm down and read them? Moreover, Qin Sheng found many of her notes on them when he flipped through them casually, which showed that she had read them carefully. Then there were books on current affairs and politics, books on Europe, North America, South America, Central Asia, and other regions. The more Qin Sheng read, the more he was stunned. Then there were books on economics and financial management, which also occupied a large number. Finally, there were books on literature and miscellaneous subjects such as psychology and so on. Qin Sheng roughly flipped through the books and had read almost 80 to 90% of them. Almost every book had notes, and extensions. In addition, there were several notebooks on the tea table. Qin Sheng had a better understanding of how Song Ryu read books. It was said that if one had a good heart, one would naturally have a good temperament. It turned out that Song Ryu's temperament had been tempered in this way. Well, no wonder she could be so appreciated and valued by those elders and big shots. The door of the other bedroom was open. Since Qin Sheng had nothing to do, he casually looked around. When he turned on the light, Qin Sheng was completely speechless. It was not a secondary bedroom at all. It was obviously a real study, which was full of books. Several walls were full of bookshelves, on which various kinds of books were placed. In the middle of the study was an ordinary desk, and the ground around the desk was also full of books. Qin Sheng was speechless. It turned out that this was Song Ryu. No wonder her life was so monotonous. It turned out that she spent all her time reading and researching. Qin Sheng admired her from the bottom of his heart. In this era, there were not many young people who could read so calmly, not to mention that she was a woman, and a beautiful one at that. Among his peers, Song Ryu was definitely the one who read the most books. Whether it was a man or a woman, she was the only one who read so much. Qin Sheng felt a little ashamed of himself. When Qin Sheng came out of the study, Song Ryu had already taken a shower and changed into a set of comfortable pajamas. It seemed that Song Ryu really didn't treat Qin Sheng as an outsider. Perhaps she was sending a signal to the outside world that no matter what others thought of her marriage with Qin Sheng, she would continue to move forward with unswerving determination. Chapter 9:57. Facing it calmly at this moment, Song Ryu was standing in front of Qin Sheng. She was the most genuine and casual Song Ryu. She did not keep people at arm's length, nor did she have to pretend to be an obedient girl in front of the elders. She was herself. She was just Song Ryu. In the past, Qin Sheng's impression of Song Ryu was that no matter what others said about Song Ryu's outstanding talent, how she overshadowed most of the women of her age in Sijou City, how she was not inferior to men and made many men feel inferior, and how she was praised by many big shots and elders in Seijo City. Qin Sheng knew all of this. However, although Qin Sheng knew, it was like knowing that a master was a master, but he did not know how she became a master and what her moves were. Therefore, he treated Song Ryu the same way. He knew that Song Ryu was powerful, but he didn't know why and how. Now, Qin Sheng understood everything. She was really a strange woman. "What's wrong with you?" Song Ryu asked embarrassedly when she saw Qin Sheng staring at her without saying anything. Then she looked at her clothes again and found nothing wrong with them. However, this was the first time that she had acted like this in front of a man. Qin Sheng came to his senses and said, "Haha, nothing. I just feel that you seem to be more beautiful. Did you chase other girls like this before?" Song Ryu deliberately joked. Qin Sheng said, "No, I was always chased by girls." "You're bragging." Song Ryu smiled. After Song Ryu sat on the sofa, Qin Sheng said slowly, "Why are there so many books in your house? The living room is also full of books. No wonder you don't like to go to parties or go shopping. It turns out that you always read at home." "I liked reading since I was a child. Later, I began to do research. It's because of my job," Song Ryu explained honestly. She could read quietly and endure loneliness to do things. Because of this, she was appreciated by the elders. Otherwise, how could she become the student of that think tank teacher? Qin Sheng said with admiration, "Have you read all these books?" "Most of them, but I didn't have time to read them." "I don't have much time to read these days," Song Ryu said with a smile. Qin Sheng was a little embarrassed as he said, "It's all my fault for disturbing you." "No, it's just that I can't calm down. Besides, I also feel that my current life is a little boring. I should change my way of life. Otherwise, I'll really become a bookworm." Song Ryu covered her mouth and chuckled. Qin Sheng nodded silently and said, "Well, that's true." He looked at the time again and felt that it was time to go back. So he smiled and said, "Rest early then. I'll go back first." After a moment of hesitation, Song Ryu said, "Can you wait until I fall asleep?" Qin Sheng hesitated for a moment and finally nodded in agreement. In Song Ryu's boudoir, Qin Sheng sat quietly at the head of the bed, holding Song Ryu's hand tightly. Song Ryu was lying on the bed, looking at Qin Sheng calmly. She wanted to say something, but stopped on second thought. Song Ryu's bedroom was similar to that of most girls. There were many things that women liked. The only difference was that there was a stack of books at the head of the bed. She must have been reading them recently. Song Ryu couldn't help but ask again, "Are you really okay with what happened tonight?" Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "All of this was aimed at me. It's just that you were implicated. If you had chosen someone else, perhaps you wouldn't have suffered these grievances. In fact, you, who were stuck in the middle, feel more uncomfortable. If anyone wants to say sorry, it should be me." "You feel wronged more," Song Ryu said lightly. Qin Sheng smiled bitterly and said, "It's nothing. A man should experience more things in his life. Compared with me, a second-generation rich man who enjoys the fruits of others' labor, the grievances of my father's generation are the real grievances. It's just that I still feel a little guilty about you." "Guilty about what?" Song Ryu was confused. After thinking for a few seconds, Qin Sheng said, "After I walked in your house today, I realized why so many people think that I'm not good enough for you. Now I also feel that I'm not good enough for you. It's no wonder why Song Husheng is against me. You should find a man who is more suitable for you. Until now, I still can't figure out why you agreed to this marriage." "Why?" "You will know the answer in the future." Song Ryu still said the same, but this time she was smiling. Qin Sheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Then I won't talk about it. Go to sleep." Song Ryu fell asleep very quickly. Even though Qin Sheng was present, it didn't take long for her to fall asleep. Her sleeping posture was very elegant, like a sleeping beauty in a fairy tale. Her eyelashes flickered occasionally, and even her small mouth was so cute. Qin Sheng was about to get up and leave, but when he saw Song Ryu like this, he was somewhat tempted. He hesitated for a moment and finally chose to take a risk. He lowered his head slowly and kissed Song Ryu's lips gently. He seemed to feel his heart beating fast, and he also thought about how to explain when Song Ryu woke up. Fortunately, the kiss went well. After getting up, Qin Sheng left with satisfaction. At this time, Song Ryu also raised the corner of her mouth slightly. It was very late when Qin Sheng returned to the West Mountain villa of the Qin family. Zhao Anji and Qin Jing had already gone to bed, but Qin Ran was still waiting for Qin Sheng in the living room. She was a little sleepy and began to doze. "Sister, why don't you go back to your room to sleep?" Qin Sheng came back and saw Qin Ran like this. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Qin Ran woke up and said angrily, "Why did you come back so late? You made me worry all night. Can you come back earlier in the future? You didn't answer my calls." "Sister, what can I worry about? I guess Sister Ponytail and Jiao have already reported it to you. But I have to say, sister, why did you know everything in advance? You didn't discuss it with me. I was almost ruined tonight." Qin Sheng let out a long sigh and said. Qin Ran stared at Qin Sheng and said, "Don't I know you? Even if I told you, could you not go if I advised you to be sullen? How could I not know what you were thinking in your heart? I might as well let you go. Anyway, you will be rebuffed sooner or later. You know me best, sister." Qin Sheng laughed and said. Qin Ran said angrily, "Don't flatter me. Let's talk about what happened tonight. I heard that Chen Taihe and Su Xingwei joined hands to make trouble for you. Even Song Hushing jumped out in the end. But in the end, you threw Song Hushing into the swimming pool. Weren't you afraid that Song Hushing would turn against you? Weren't you afraid that Ryu would be angry?" Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "Ryu won't be angry. As for those people, I don't care. My current opponents are not them. They just want to ruin my reputation. Let them be. What I need to face now is Sixth Uncle's group. They won't let it go so easily." Qin Sheng said thoughtfully. Qin Ran said honestly, "Since the case of the old man has not been settled, we have to be careful. Otherwise, we will lose everything." Qin Sheng nodded silently. Qin Ran suddenly said in a slightly serious tone, "By the way, I've been waiting for you at such a late hour because I have something to tell you. Uncle is going to the hospital to visit Grandma tomorrow morning. At that time, we'll go there with him. Uncle may have something to tell you, so you must go there." "I have to go there." Qin Sheng frowned and said. He hadn't seen this busy uncle for a long time. He didn't know why his uncle suddenly wanted to talk to him. However, no matter what, he could only wait until he saw him. Therefore, Qin Sheng dared not refuse. The next morning, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran set off for the hospital just after 8 o'clock. They thought they had arrived quite early. However, when they arrived at the hospital ward, they could tell from the sudden strengthening of the security of this high-rise building that their uncle might have arrived. As expected, when they got out of the elevator and arrived at the floor where Grandma was, everything became clear. After going through several procedures, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran finally entered Grandma's ward. In the ward, their uncle was chatting with Grandma. At this time, their uncle was just an ordinary son, not the military tycoon who had been on the battlefield all his life. Seeing Qin Sheng and Qin Ran coming, Zhu Weiguo, who was wearing a military uniform, greeted them kindly. "You and your brother are here." "Uncle, why are you here so early?" Qin Ran was very kind to her uncle. She smiled and walked over to him, holding his arm. The old lady lying on the bed smiled from ear to ear. Zhu Weiguo patted Qin Ran's hand and said honestly, "I have a meeting later, so I came here early. After all, the National Day is coming, and I have a lot of things to do." "Uncle, no matter how busy you are, you should take care of yourself." Qin Ran acted like a spoiled child. At this time, Zhu Weiguo stood up slowly and said, "Well, you are a little girl. I don't know when you'll get married. Now Qin Sheng is ahead of you. You chat with Grandma for a while. I have something to talk to Qin Sheng about." When Qin Sheng heard this, he felt a little uneasy. Even though this big boss was his uncle, he was still a high-ranking soldier after all. No matter how amiable he was, Qin Sheng always kept a distance from him every time he saw him. Maybe he had a murderous aura around him. Qin Sheng thought to himself. However, no matter what, Qin Sheng had to face it calmly. He could only follow his uncle out of the ward. Chapter 958. Qin Sheng hadn't seen Zhu Weiguo, who was in a high position, or Zhu Weiguo, who had a bright future in his career, since he returned to the Zhu family. Therefore, although Zhu Weiguo was his uncle and Zhu Weiguo was his uncle, Qin Sheng didn't know them better than strangers. However, they were not strangers after all. They were his family. He just couldn't help it. After all, he could see them every day, so could other people. Zhu Weiguo was very busy. How busy? It was the first time for Zhu Weiguo to visit his old lady since she was hospitalized. Zhu Weiguo had only seen his old lady 3 times since she came back to Beijing. Last time, if she hadn't announced something important, Zhu Weiguo had to come back. He wouldn't have taken time to see her. Loyalty and filial piety had always been difficult. Zhu Weiguo was in this position, so he couldn't make decisions on many things. Therefore, he came to see his old lady this time to solve the problem of the Qin family. He didn't want to see the Qin family, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran, get involved in this storm. After Qin Chang'an got involved, the 2 kids couldn't handle it. In a lounge next to the ward, there were only Zhu Weiguo and Qin Sheng. The door was guarded by Zhu Weiguo's secretary and guards. No one was allowed to come in, because what Zhu Weiguo was going to say today was related to the future of the Qin family. Qin Sheng, you're getting engaged next month. How's the preparation going? Zhu Weiguo asked casually. Although he didn't agree to this marriage at first, the old lady and the old master had made the decision. Zhu Weiguo couldn't change it, so he just let nature take its course. Moreover, Qin Sheng and Ruyu were a good match. Qin Sheng was lucky to marry a wife like Ruyu. Qin Sheng answered honestly, "Uncle, my aunt is in charge of these things. They should be ready." Zhu Weiguo let out a long sigh as he said, "Yeah, you're not young anymore. It's time for you to get married. When you get married, your sister will also get married. She has been waiting for you all the time. You two have made your grandmother worry a lot. Your grandmother will be satisfied to see you two get married." When Qin Sheng had not come back, the old lady would talk about it almost every year. Especially when she saw Qin Ran, she would always call her poor granddaughter. Zhu Weiguo sighed deeply. Feeling somewhat guilty, Qin Sheng said, "I made Grandma and Uncle worry about me. A lot of things can't be blamed on you. What happened can't be changed. No matter what, it's good that you're back," Zhu Weiguo said indifferently. Qin Sheng did not say anything. Ever since he had returned to the Qin family and the Zhu family, he had been trying to figure out whether the car accident that his mother had died was an accident or whether there was a mastermind behind it. If there was a mastermind behind it, why didn't the old man and the Zhu family find out who it was? Qin Sheng could understand if the situation back then did not allow it. But later on, both the Qin family and the Zhu family had reached such a position. Could it be that they could not find the real culprit behind the scenes? Zhu Weiguo did not know what Qin Sheng was thinking. He said, "What about the Qin family? Is your father okay in there?" Qin Sheng replied absent-mindedly, "We've visited him twice. He's all right, and his mental state is also fine. As for the Qin family, that's all." How could Uncle not know the situation of the Qin family? You should know it better than anyone else. Do you still need to ask me about it? But in the end, he did not dare to say anything. Zhu Weiguo felt that he had laid the groundwork, and it was time to talk about the Qin family. Chatting with this nephew of his was even more tiring than having a meeting. Because he had to care about his feelings, he could not scold him directly. However, some things had to be said eventually. So Zhu Weiguo said directly, "Qin Sheng, this time I want to talk to you about the Qin family. This is also the last time I will pay attention to the Qin family. I want to talk about what your grandmother has done for you before. I guess you don't know how much your grandmother has done for you during this period. But I want you to know that both your grandmother and I are doing this for the good of the Qin family, as well as for you and your sister. So I will say what should be said today. As for what you will do, I don't care." Zhu Weiguo suddenly became so serious that Qin Sheng felt like he was facing a formidable enemy. He sat up straight, looked at Zhu Weiguo, and said, "Uncle, you can say it. I'm listening." "Qin Sheng, you can't say that your father's ending today was caused by him. It's just that times have changed. In front of the general trend of the country, no matter who it is, it's like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. But fortunately, he understood at the last moment and let go of many things. Otherwise, he would not have ended up like this. Of course, it's also caused by him. If he had been slower in these years, and not developed so fast, he would not have been the one who stood out. Everything would have been turned around, and naturally, he would not have ended up like this. Zhu Weiguo frowned and looked at Qin Sheng at the same time. He wanted to know Qin Sheng's reaction. Qin Sheng said quietly, "Uncle, I already know about these things. The old man also told me. It's really not anyone's fault. I can only say that the Qin family has been in such a position. They have to make sacrifices. I'm very glad to hear that. But I don't know why the Qin family still won't let go of the Chang'an department. Is it your idea or your father's?" Zhu Weiguo asked. Qin Sheng was a little surprised and said, "Uncle, what do you mean? Qin Sheng, don't you think the Chang'an department is already a hot potato? Everyone is watching the Chang'an department. If the Qin family still won't let go, what will others think? If the Qin family continues to control the Chang'an department, do you think they can change your father's ending? What I want to tell you is that the Chang'an department is far from as simple as you think. All this is just the beginning. What you see is just the tip of the iceberg. The bigger crisis is actually hidden under the sea. When you see it, it will be too late." Zhu Weiguo finally said what he should say. This was also what he had to say. If Qin Sheng still did not listen to him, he would no longer care about Qin Sheng, Qin Ran, and the Qin family in the future. He would let them run their own course. Qin Sheng was very shocked. This was the first time that his uncle had said these things to him so seriously. Although others had said these words, they were far less important than his uncle. Qin Sheng was very clear that his uncle knew more than others. So he said seriously, "Uncle, do you mean that we should let the Qin family give up the Chang'an department?" Zhu Weiguo nodded affirmatively and said, "Giving up the Chang'an department is the best choice for the Qin family. Otherwise, your father's situation will not be better. No matter how much help the Zhu family gives, it will be useless. Besides, Qin Sheng, who said that giving up is a loss. Giving up is not necessarily a loss. Maybe after you give up, the Qin family may be the big winner after a period of time." Qin Sheng could not calm down. He gritted his teeth and said, "Uncle, do you really want to do this? I've said what I should say. Go back and think about it. As for how to do it, it's up to you. Of course, if you choose to give up, you can also maximize the benefits appropriately. After all, there are many dangers that others may not be able to see." Zhu Weiguo said with assurance. He had spent a lot of effort to figure out the Qin family situation. However, in his position, he could not intervene directly. Otherwise, the Zhu family would suffer. "Uncle," Qin Sheng murmured. Zhu Weiguo stood up slowly and said, "If you don't believe me, you can tell my words to your father and your eldest uncle, who has already left the mountain. I think they will give you an answer." "What? Eldest uncle has left the mountain?" Hearing this news, Qin Sheng was shocked again. When did eldest uncle leave the mountain? Where is he now? Why don't they know? How did uncle know about it? Even if eldest uncle left the mountain, why didn't he go back to the Qin family? Qin Sheng had a series of questions. However, when he came to himself and wanted to ask, he found that his uncle had already stood up and went back to his room. Qin Sheng quickly stood up and followed him. However, he did not ask anything. After all, his grandmother and sister were still here. It was not appropriate at this time. Even if he asked his uncle, he might not tell him. Zhu Weiguo held his old mother's hand and said reluctantly, "Mom, then I'll leave first. Qin Sheng and Qin Ran will stay with you. When I'm done with my work, I'll come to see you. Take care of yourself and listen to the doctor." The old lady said disapprovingly, All right. The national affairs are more important. Hurry up and go. I'll be fine. You don't have to worry about me." "Okay, then I'm leaving." Zhu Weiguo stood up slowly and left, looking back 3 times as he walked. He was really reluctant to leave his mother. Although she had returned to the capital, he still did not have much time to accompany her. This was the guilt of being a son, but he believed that his mother would understand. When Zhu Weiguo left, he patted Qin Sheng on the shoulder. Only Qin Sheng, and he could understand what he meant. What should Qin Sheng choose this time? It was estimated that he could not make the decision alone. He had to go back and discuss with his sister and aunt. At least he had to ask eldest uncle, who had already left the mountain. However, where was eldest uncle now? Chapter 959. After Zhu Weigua, who was busy with official business, left, only Qin Sheng and Qin Ran were left in the ward to accompany the old lady. The medical staff were all outside. As long as the Zhu family was present, the medical staff would take the initiative to leave. Later, Wu Yajun and her daughter-in-law would come over with their grandchildren. Recently, the old lady quite liked children. This might be the rejuvenation of her mind. Shunga, what did your uncle talk to you about? The old lady asked casually. She was afraid that her eldest son would put more pressure on her nephew. After all, the Zhu family could help the Qin family because of her stubbornness. Qin Sheng couldn't tell the truth, so he said casually, "Nothing much. He just asked me how I'm preparing for the engagement next month. He also said that if there's anything I can do to help, I can tell my aunt and small aunt. No matter how busy he is, he will take time to attend." Then he asked about the Qin family. "That's good, but you should communicate with the Song family in time. Everyone should attend, preferably the immediate relatives. It's not good if there are too many people." The old lady kindly reminded them. After all, most of them were in the system, so they had to pay attention to what they should pay attention to. Qin Sheng smiled and said, "Grandma, don't worry about it. We have a plan. There will probably be 3 or 4 tables. It won't be too many. Take good care of yourself. At that time, you'll have to say something." "Kid, I don't need to say anything. Let your uncle do the talking." The old lady smiled happily. No matter who Qin Sheng married, she finally saw this grandson was going to have a family. In the future, she could explain to the old man and her daughter when she passed away. Qin Ran echoed, "Grandma, you have to say something. You're the baby of our family." When the old lady heard the word baby, she was instantly amused. With these children accompanying her, her mood was much better. When people were old, they just wanted to have their children and grandchildren around their knees and reunite with their families. Her life could be considered to be complete. Qin Sheng and Qin Ran were not in a hurry to leave. They kept chatting with the old lady and amused her. They didn't leave until their aunt, Wu Yajun, came over with her cousin-in-law and the children. It was said that an old leader would come in the afternoon, and their aunt would accompany him. On the way back, Qin Ran, who had already noticed that something was wrong with Qin Sheng, asked directly, "Qin Sheng, what did Uncle talk to you about?" "Sister, my uncle asked us to withdraw from the Chang'an system. He said it was the best choice and the last choice, because things are not as simple as we thought." Qin Sheng glanced at the driver in front of him, making sure that the driver was his henchman. When Qin Ran heard this, she was instantly stunned. This was what her uncle had said. It definitely meant something different. "What? You want us to leave the Chang'an system?" In the West Mountain villa of the Qin family, Zhao Anji, who had already gone to the group, rushed back. Because Qin Sheng and Qin Ran said that there was something urgent, she rushed back. But after hearing the news, Zhao Anji was somewhat shocked. Qin Sheng said slowly, "Annie, I've told you what my uncle said. He said that if we don't give up the Chang'an organization, the Qin family will always be the focus. My father's pressure won't be reduced, and the ending won't change. Only when the Qin family gives up the Chang, an organization, can we have a chance to turn things around. Give up Chang'an system? That's easy for you to say. How much profit does the Chang and faction have now? How can we give it up so easily?" I think it's easy for him to say that. Zhao Anji did not agree, but retorted. Qin Ran said thoughtfully, "Auntie, I've thought about it carefully. I think my uncle is right. We should make a choice. Otherwise, we will be deeply involved in the internal strife of the Chang and organization, and the Qin family will always be the target of public criticism. At that time, we will have no time or energy to save my father." Since Qin Sheng told her about this, Qin Ran had been thinking about it. It seemed that since the old man's accident, they had put all their energy into the affairs of the Chang and organization, although their purpose was to save the old man. The Chang and organization had already returned to the control of the Qin family, but how could the sixth uncle and the others give up the Chang organization? No one knew how many troubles there would be. They would only be tired of dealing with them. How could they have the energy to save the old man? Zhao Anji insisted. "No, we have finally regained control of the Chang and organization. How can we give it up so easily?" Qin Sheng had to continue. "Auntie, although we will give up the Chong and organization, we won't give it up for nothing. We can negotiate with the sixth uncle and strive for the same benefits, even at a slight discount. The most important thing is that we can compromise with the sixth uncle on the issue of the old man. If we give up the Chong and organization, they will stop chasing after the old man. This is killing two birds with one stone. At that time, we will still have the assets of the Qin family, and the Qin family will still be the Qin family. We can also focus all our energy on the old man's issue. Qin Sheng was very thoughtful. It could be said that he had considered everything that the Qin family could think of. His uncle did not say how to give up the Chong and organization. They could try their best to maximize the benefits. In this way, the Qin family would definitely make a profit. Qin Ran said, "Auntie, I think Qin Sheng is right. For our Qin family, this is the best choice at present. I believe that since Uncle said so, he definitely has his own considerations. He is also doing the Qin family a favor." The main reason was that she trusted her uncle. Since her uncle said so, it could be said that he was helping the Qin family. After hearing Qin Sheng's words, Zhao Anji felt a little relieved. She hesitated for a moment and said, "Let me think about it. This is too important. It is related to the future of the Qin family." The shares of the Chong, an organization owned by the Qin family, were currently in the hands of Qin Chang'an, Qin Sheng, and Qin Ran. Qin Jing also had some shares, but Zhao Anji did not. Therefore, as long as Qin Sheng and Qin Ran wanted to, they could completely bypass Zhao Anji. Even if Zhao Anji did not agree, so what? However, Zhao Anji was their aunt, and the only elder of the Qin family who could speak for her at present. Of course, they cannot do this. Otherwise, it would only disappoint Zhao Anji. After all, Zhao Anji did not hesitate to come back from Canada for the Qin family. During this period, she had been worried about the Qin family. Qin Sheng thought for a moment and said, "Aunt, Uncle also said that if you don't believe him, you can let me ask eldest uncle and the old man. They will naturally understand what he means." This sentence made Zhao Anji fall into deep thought. If Zhu Weiguo did not have absolute confidence, he would not have said so. However, what Qin Sheng said next directly shocked and annoyed Zhao Anji. Qin Sheng said slowly, "Uncle also said that eldest uncle has already left Mount Wutai. He has come out of the mountain." What? Zhao Anji and Qin Ran almost said at the same time. Qin Sheng had to repeat what Uncle said word by word. Then he said, "This is what Uncle said. I am also very surprised. I think Uncle must have known this, so he said it. This Qin Changxing, I said that he has been pretending to be mysterious all these years. He just wants to escape from everything. Now, he finally can't bear the loneliness. But I don't understand. Since this bastard has come out of the mountain, why doesn't he come back? Is he going to watch the Qin family be destroyed before he takes action?" Zhao Anji said somewhat angrily. Qin Ran also said eagerly, "Qin Sheng, since eldest uncle has come out of the mountain, do you know where he is?" Qin Sheng shook his head and said with a bitter smile, "I don't know. Uncle didn't say, but I want to talk to eldest uncle. Even if eldest uncle has any difficulties, I think it should be okay to talk to him. Maybe eldest uncle, who has come out of the mountain, can see many things more clearly than us." Qin Ran nodded silently and said, "Maybe, but where can you find eldest uncle?" "Of course, I will ask Uncle. Uncle must know," Qin Sheng said with a faint smile. Zhao Anji did not say anything. Since Qin Changxing had come out of the mountain, she let Qin Sheng talk to him and ask Zhu Weiguo about his suggestion. This was what she was most concerned about at the moment. As for other things, she would deal with them when she met Qin Changxing. She did not believe in Zhu Weiguo, but she absolutely believed in Qin Changxing. Otherwise, she would not have married him in the past. Moreover, she also believed in Qin Changxing's ability. At the same time, Qin Sheng asked Zhao Anji to find a way to smooth things over and fight for them to see the old man again. He also wanted to ask the old man's opinion. If both eldest uncle and the old man agreed, then they would naturally give up the Chong and system without hesitation. Next, they would talk to sixth uncle about the deal. Qin Sheng called his uncle Zhu Weiguo that afternoon. However, it was Zhu Weiguo's secretary who answered the phone. When Qin Sheng was about to hang up, Zhu Weigu's secretary said that he knew why Qin Sheng called him. Before Qin Sheng came to his senses, he had already told Qin Sheng the answer he wanted to know, which was Qin Changxing's whereabouts. Qin Sheng was very surprised. As expected, his uncle had guessed everything. His uncle knew that he would definitely go to see eldest uncle. His uncle was very astute. Qin Sheng did not waste any time and directly set off in the evening. Chapter 960. Was he there? The Qin family's crisis seemed to have reached a critical stage. Whether the Qin family could get out of it or not depended on their choice this time. If they could get out of it, they would only sacrifice Qin Chang'an's freedom. No matter what, Qin Chang'an would not be fine, because many people would not agree. However, with the Qin family's efforts, Qin Chang'an could have a good ending. It would be easy for him to do what he wanted later. Even in prison, Qin Chang'an could still control everything in the Qin family. Moreover, Qin Sheng was here, so Qin Chang'an could rest assured. If the Qin family could not get out of it, not only would Qin Chang'an end up miserable, but the Qin family would also be broken. At that time, the Qin family could only scatter like monkeys when the tree falls. They could only keep a low profile and look for opportunities to make a comeback. Qin Sheng dared not make a decision without authorization, nor could he make a decision completely. So he chose to see his first uncle. Qin Sheng told Song Ryu before he left. Since what had happened last night, it seemed that their relationship had improved. Besides, Song Ryu could be considered his fiancé now. Qin Sheng should inform Song Ryu of his sudden departure from Beijing. At the same time, Qin Sheng also asked how Song Husheng was doing. Last night, he had thrown Song Husheng into the swimming pool under the watchful eyes of the public. Song Ryu had already given Qin Sheng enough face by not coming to see him with a knife. After Qin Sheng asked, Song Ryu told Qin Sheng the reason. After what happened last night, the Song family got the news. Song Husheng, who wanted to make trouble for Qin Sheng, was taken away directly. Old Master Song gave a strict order that Song Husheng could not leave home for a week. He also asked the guards to watch him 24 hours a day. Without his permission, no one was allowed to touch Song Husheng, not even his parents. Obviously, Old Master Song was very angry this time. He even scolded Song Husheng on the phone. Song Husheng had nowhere to vent his anger. He could only be locked up in the Sihiyuan of the Song family. The main thing was that he refused to admit his mistake. This time, it was obvious that he would not turn back until he hit the wall. This time, Qin Sheng was going to meet his eldest uncle Qin Changxing. Moreover, he was going to a faraway place, which was indeed a bit worrying. That was because Qin Sheng had no one he could use by his side. Be it Gong Sun, Chong Baji, Brother Nangong Wu, etc., they were all in other places. If Qin Sheng left Sijio City, it would be more dangerous. In the end, Qin Sheng could only ask for help from the He family. The news from his uncle was that his first uncle had left Wutai Mountain for Sanya, which surprised Qin Sheng a little. He did not expect his first uncle to be so far away. This time, the Qin family had sent Fu Rong and He Wei, who were quite familiar with Qin Sheng, to follow him to Hainan. With their strength, as long as they did not encounter any extremely difficult opponents, they would naturally be able to protect Qin Sheng. The Qin family arranged for a business jet to fly directly to Sanya. They did not use Qin Chang'an's private jet. After all, it was too high profile and was not suitable to attract attention. Taking a step back, they chose a business jet to keep a secret. They could not let outsiders know the purpose of Qin Sheng going to Sanya, nor could they let outsiders know that Qin Changxing had left the mountain. This was a business jet under Hainan Airlines. Qin Sheng did not know if this was a coincidence. During this period of time, Hainan Airlines news was not as lively as the Qin family's news. From buying in the past to selling now, what Hainan Airlines had experienced was also what the Qin family had experienced. Recently, the Chang and family had also been selling, especially when they sold off a large number of overseas assets to raise funds. Hainan Airlines also sold off assets to return to its main business. After all, Hainan Airlines' current debt was really shocking. On the Chang and family's side, Qin Chang'an was taken away for investigation. On the other hand, The former boss of Hainan Airlines had an accident and died in France. Some of the inside stories were really hard to guess. Now that the once marginalized second-in-command of Hainan Airlines had officially returned, whether Hainan Airlines could tide over the crisis depended on how he handled it. It was the same for the Qin family. Whether or not they could tide over the crisis depended on this choice. On the business jet, Qin Sheng had been looking at the relevant documents regarding Chong and family. If the Qin family really chose to give up on Chong and family and sell off the Chong and family shares, they would naturally have to obtain the same benefits. They would definitely not give it away for free. In that case, they would have to figure out how much the Qin family's Chong and family shares were worth. Even if the Qin family wanted to sell them at a discount, they had to have a bottom line. This was not something that could be done in a day. Most of the time, Fu Rong was resting with his eyes closed or reading a magazine. Occasionally, he would look at Qin Sheng. This time, Qin Sheng did not bring any of the Qin family's bodyguards with him. It could be seen how much he trusted the He family. After all, the He family was the only reliable guardian family. As for the ambitious Zheng family, Qin Sheng did not bother with them anymore. As for the peerless woman in white, Qin Sheng had not seen her or contacted her. He did not know where she was now. He Wei, who was quite handsome and could be said to be a combination of a pretty boy and a little fresh meat, had been chatting with two air stewardesses on the business jet. These two air stewardesses were indeed beautiful, and the young, rich, and handsome He Wei naturally attracted them. They chatted happily along the way and seemed to have exchanged contact information with each other. Qin Sheng and Fu Rong saw this, but they did not bother to talk to him. This was He Wei's only hobby. However, he was not a promiscuous person. At most, he was just killing time. When they arrived at Sanya Phoenix Airport, it was already past 9 p.m. Sanya was really hot in this season. It was only suitable for Sanya during winter because it was also the peak tourist season. At this time, not many people would be willing to come to Sanya. However, when winter came, Sanya would instantly become Sanya City, one of the 3 provinces in the Northeast because there were too many Northeasterners here. All the arrangements for this trip to Sanya were handled by the He family. The He family had many properties here, including hotels and high-class villas. Therefore, Qin Sheng directly stayed in the He family's villa at Yalong Bay. After he unpacked his luggage, he brought Fu Rong and He Wei out for supper. It was almost midnight. To avoid being followed, they spent 1.5 hours on the road. They only felt relieved after changing 3 cars along the way. This showed how careful Qin Sheng was. The food stall was near Yalong Bay in a fishing village. It was recommended by He Wei. He said that every time he came to Sanya, he would come here to eat seafood. Qin Sheng and Fu Rong were not picky, so He Wei ordered a large table. During the meal, Fu Rong did not speak much. He only occasionally responded to Qin Sheng and He Wei's conversation. Most of the time, it was Qin Sheng talking to He Wei. However, He Wei did not dare to ask Qin Sheng's purpose for coming to Sanya this time. His role was to protect Qin Sheng. If he asked too much, he would be punished by the old man when he got back. Although the old man was more amiable in front of Qin Sheng, in front of the direct and collateral relatives of the He family, he was extremely strict. No one dared to disobey the old man. After supper, the 3 of them returned to the villa. Qin Sheng stood on the balcony and looked at the sea for a while. He had not been to the beach for a while. The sea in Sanya was somewhat different from the sea in other places. However, Qin Sheng was not in the mood to go to the beach because it was too hot. The next morning, Qin Sheng set off for Haitang Bay with Fu Rong and He Wei. Because his uncle lived in a villa community at Haitang Bay, there were no accidents. They entered the community smoothly, and the He family had already made some connections. However, after entering the community, He Wei muttered, "Why does this community look so familiar? I think I've been here before." "You've been here before?" Fu Rong frowned. Qin Sheng did not speak, but he could not help but guess in his heart. He hoped that this was not a coincidence. After a few minutes, they arrived at their destination. It was one of the most luxurious villas in the community. It was said that the same villa was selling for 110 million yuan. It had all kinds of facilities, and the most beautiful one should be the boundless swimming pool facing the sea. When they arrived at the entrance of the villa, Hee finally could not help but say, "I've been here before." This villa was bought by Third Uncle. Every winter, Third Uncle would come here for a vacation. The last time I was in Sanya, my cousin asked me to come over for dinner. I think it was the year before last. After saying this, Hee did not care about Qin Sheng's expression and asked, "Young Master Qin, so we're here. What's going on? If you're looking for Third Uncle, he seems to be in Shanghai." "Are you stupid? Why would he look for Third Uncle?" Fu Rong kicked Hee angrily. He was really stupid. Only then did Hee understand. Why would Qin Sheng come to Sanya personally to look for Third Uncle? If he wanted to see Third Uncle would have come directly with a phone call. Moreover, if Qin Sheng needed help, he would look for Old Master directly. Why would he look for someone else? Hee shut up obediently. It was better not to talk at this time. As for who young Master Qin wanted to see, that was his business. Qin Sheng completely understood now. It turned out that the He family had long known that First Uncle had come out of retirement. After that, First Uncle should have contacted the He family. As for why the He family did not tell him about First Uncle and insisted on letting him know from his uncle, it could be that First Uncle had taken the initiative to tell the He family. Therefore, it was not convenient for the He family to tell him. Moreover, he did not ask the He family. Moreover, it could be that the He family did not want to be involved in the internal affairs of the Qin family. Otherwise, when Qin Sheng chose to come to Sanya, the He family would have directly told him that First Uncle was here. Before Qin Sheng and the others rang the doorbell, 2 bodyguards walked out of the front door of the villa, eyeing them fiercely. They sized up Qin Sheng and the others and were very cautious and vigilant. After that, they asked tentatively, "What are you doing?" Qin Sheng glanced at Hee and Furong. Hee immediately understood what Qin Sheng meant. He said bluntly, "I'm Hee from the He family. Who's your direct boss? Don't you know who I am?" "I'm Fu Rong from the He family," Fu Rong said immediately. The 2 bodyguards found the name familiar. They were indeed from the He family. However, they had not seen Hee and Furong before. For safety's sake, it was better to call the person in charge. After all, the person they were protecting was the He family's distinguished guest. They could not bear the responsibility if anything went wrong. After a while, the bodyguard walked over with a phone and handed it to Hee. "Our boss wants to talk to you." Hee took the phone and exchanged a few words with the other side. Then, he returned the phone to the bodyguard. Soon, the 2 bodyguards let Qin Sheng and the others in. On the way in, Qin Sheng asked casually, "Is he here?" The bodyguard was stunned for a few seconds. After he came back to his senses, he replied, Oh, you mean Mr. Qin? Mr. Qin went for a walk at the beach. He will be back in a while." "Then let's wait," Qin Sheng said disapprovingly. Since they were already here, it did not matter if they waited for a while. Chapter 9:61. Chapter 9:57. It was him. This was the top villa area of Haidang Bay, adjacent to the Park Hyatt Hotel. Just the front and backyard gardens and the boundless swimming pool were 1,200 square meters. It could be seen how large the area of this villa was. The annual property management fee alone was more than 200,000 yuan. Only the He family, a top rich family, could afford to buy it. The most important thing was that this was only used by the He family's 3rd son for vacation. He would only stay there for a few months at most each year. Although the Qin family Shishan villa was not worse than this, Qin Sheng still liked the feeling of living by the sea. When he was in Xiamen, Qin Sheng liked to sit on the balcony of the 2nd floor of the cafe and stare blankly at the sea. When the sun set, Lin Su gently nestled in his arms. That feeling was the peak of life. After entering the villa, Qin Sheng had nothing to do since his uncle was not back yet. After entering the villa, there was an 8-meter-high entrance hall. The space was very spacious. The golden wall decoration lines, the strong aluminum color, and the rich metal texture created a luxurious modern Hong Kong style. It was completely different from most of the White Sea View villas. Passing through the corridor was the living room. On both sides of the living room were huge floor-to-ceiling glass windows. The lighting was very good. The sun, The beach, the green trees, and the swimming pool were very good. Sitting in the living room, one could see the beautiful scenery of the boundless swimming pool. The furniture in the living room was also very compatible with the design of the villa. They were all top luxury brands. Qin Sheng walked around the living room twice and sat down. He did not go upstairs to look around. He only felt that the kitchen and dining room were very luxurious. After asking He Wei, he found out that the decoration of the kitchen alone cost more than 3 million yuan. It was really a villa built with money. The Qin family also had 3 villas in Sanya. However, Qin Sheng had never been there and did not have time to go. If he went there, he would know that the Qin family's villas were not worse than this one. Each of them was also worth more than 100 million yuan. It was said that the most expensive one was 300 million yuan. Every winter, Qin Chang'an would stay here with his friends for a few days. Sometimes, when he came to Sanya for meetings, he would also stay there. The other owners of the community were all big shots with high net worth. Qin Sheng sat in the living room and did not say a word. He Wei and Fu Rong looked at each other. This was indeed a little awkward. Qin Sheng had traveled thousands of miles to look for this VIP, and he was actually staying in the He family's villa. They actually did not know about it, but they were not sure if old Master Fu knew about it. Young Master Qin, we really don't know. Don't think that we're hiding it from you, He Wei explained, fearing that Qin Sheng would overthink. Qin Sheng smiled and shook his head as he said, I know you don't know. It has nothing to do with you. After hearing this, He Wei felt slightly more at ease. As for the other matters, it wasn't something he could care about. He was just a small character. After everyone waited in the living room for about half an hour, Qin Changxing, who had gone for a walk by the beach, finally came back. The villa's bodyguard had already told him over the phone that Qin Sheng had come. He was not surprised at all. However, he did not expect Qin Sheng to come so quickly. At present, only the He family's old master knew about his whereabouts. It seemed that the He family should have told Qin Sheng. When Qin Sheng saw this first uncle, he did not expect him to be dressed like this. He was wearing a white short-sleeved shirt and shorts, a cap, and beach shoes. He was no longer the old monk who had practiced hard for more than 20 years. Instead, he was an old man who was more down-to-earth and human. However, the extraordinary temperament of his body could not be concealed. Qin Sheng was stunned for a moment before he came to his senses. He stood up slowly and walked over. First uncle. Qin Changxing stroked his white beard gently. He patted Qin Sheng's shoulder and said, You're here. Since first uncle is not willing to see us, I can only come and find first uncle, Qin Sheng said calmly. It seemed that he was not too excited. He did not know whether it was because he had seen first uncle last time or because he was affected by his first uncle's calm state of mind. Qin Changxing always had a vague smile on his face, which made people feel very comfortable. Coupled with his indifferent temperament, he was very approachable. He said casually, I guess you haven't had breakfast yet. If you have anything to say, let's talk after breakfast. At this moment, Qin Changxing had already walked past Qin Sheng. He also saw Fu Rong and He Wei behind him. Fu Rong and He Wei felt a little uneasy at the moment. They had already heard Qin Sheng call this old man, who they had never met but looked somewhat sage-like. Qin Sheng called this old man first uncle. However, they had never heard that there were other men in the Qin family. When did Qin Chang'an have an elder brother? Qin Chang'an's elder brother was such a powerful figure. No wonder Qin Sheng would come all the way to see this man. The most important thing was that this man was related to the He family. Obviously, the old master knew about the existence of this task. Otherwise, why would he live in the He family's villa? Fu Rong and He Wei did not know how to greet him. They could only smile and nod politely. Qin Changxing said softly, Let's go for breakfast. They went to the dining room for breakfast. The servants in the villa had already prepared breakfast. They could ask the chef of the Park Hyatt Hotel to come over and make a family dinner at any time. However, Qin Changxing was used to simple meals, so he did not have such a request. The breakfast was very simple. However, Fu Rong and He Wei were a little uneasy while eating. Qin Changxing and Qin Sheng did not speak either. They just lowered their heads and ate. This seemed to be the inheritance of the Qin family, so the atmosphere was a little heavy. Hiwei was the first one who could not sit still. After eating a few mouthfuls, he stood up and said that he was full. The swimming pool looked pretty good, and he wanted to go for a swim. He asked Fu Rong if he wanted to go. Fu Rong naturally agreed, and they left. Not long after, Qin Sheng and Qin Changxing also finished their breakfast. Qin Changxing stood up and said, "Let's go outside and sit for a while." They went to the garden of the villa and sat facing each other while bathing in the sunshine and sea breeze. There were 2 glasses of juice and fruits in front of them. Qin Changxing took the initiative to ask, "How did you know I was here? Did the family tell you, or—" "Uncle, before I answer your question, can you answer mine first?" Qin Sheng asked. Qin Changxing smiled softly and said, "Go ahead. Uncle, since you have decided to leave the mountain, why don't you go back to the Qin family? Why did you hide it from us?" Qin Sheng asked unhappily. Qin Changxing did not answer directly. After hesitating for a few seconds, he said calmly, "Qin Sheng, do you think it is appropriate for me to go back at this time? Why is it not appropriate? You are a member of the Qin family. The Qin family is already in a precarious situation. Why is it not appropriate for you to go back?" Qin Sheng said with some confusion. Looking at Qin Sheng's extremely firm eyes, Qin Changxing seemed to see the shadow of Qin Sheng when he was young. However, they would not think about many things at the level of rejuvenation. He could only explain to Qin Sheng, "Qin Sheng, is the Qin family really at the point of no retreat? The Zhu family helped you, and you're going to marry the daughter of the Song family. It seems that you have regained control of the Chang and family. How many interests are involved in the Chang and family? I'm afraid that you can't figure it out at all. Moreover, the Qin family has the Qin family's industry. All of these are too big. The Qin family has only caught Qin Chang on. What else can the Qin family lose?" "Uncle, what do you mean by this? What do you mean that the Qin family has only caught Qin Chang on?" Hearing this, Qin Sheng asked unhappily. Although the man in front of him was his uncle, he had only met him once. Naturally, he could not get close to him. Qin Changxing had to continue saying, "Qin Sheng, the Qin family is still wrestling with others. Even the higher-ups are playing games on this matter. It is not appropriate for me to go back at this time. It will only make many people fear and dislike me. Instead, the Qin family will lose points and your father will be under more pressure. Do you understand?" "I still don't understand," Qin Sheng said bluntly. Qin Changxing had to continue talking. After all, Qin Sheng was his nephew. It was okay for him to say more. After all, he was still young and had not experienced the storm in Sijio City. He said in a low voice, "How should I put it? That is, in many people's eyes, the Qin family is not so miserable." "Is it really miserable? Do you think it is miserable?" They think that the Qin family is still very prosperous, so they continue to suppress the Qin family. What happened to the Chang and family was caused by the general trend. Many people took advantage of it. Therefore, the Qin family has not reached the most miserable point yet. If it really reaches the most miserable point, I will naturally go back. Qin Sheng was silent and thought about what his uncle had said carefully. It seemed to be reasonable. In the eyes of some people, the Qin family was in trouble now. But in the eyes of most people, especially many ordinary people, the Qin family was really not that miserable. After Qin Sheng came to himself, he asked subconsciously, "Uncle, do you mean that we should not regain control of the Chang and family?" Qin Changxing was a little surprised. It did not occur to him that Qin Sheng would say this. He frowned and said, "It seems that someone has already told you to do so." "Uncle, do you also think so?" Qin Sheng asked in reply. Qin Changxing said honestly, "Now the Chang and family is a hot potato. Whoever owns it will be in deep trouble. Let's take a step back and think about it. The Chang and family may be a bait. Some people are waiting for everyone to jump out. At that time, it will also be the time to end. Because the Chang and family has been developing too fast and has taken a lot of shortcuts in recent years, this is not allowed by a country. So killing the Chang and family is just killing the chicken to warn the monkey." Qin Changxing's words were very straightforward, and he did not hide anything. If he had not said this, Qin Sheng would not have realized how serious it was. As expected, after Qin Sheng heard this, he was shocked for a long time. He finally understood why his uncle wanted the Qin family to give up the Chang and family. It was just that his uncle did not say it directly. Now his uncle had given him the answer. Qin Sheng felt sweat on his forehead. After he came to himself, he subconsciously wiped the sweat off and said honestly, "Uncle, didn't you ask me who told you about this?" "Who?" Qin Changxing vaguely had a few answers. Qin Sheng replied, "Not old master he, but my uncle." "Oh." Qin Changxing nodded slightly. It seemed that he was not surprised because the current Zhu Weiwu did have this ability. It seemed that he had been paying attention to the Qin family. Qin Sheng continued, "Uncle, didn't you just say that it seems that someone has told me to do so?" "Indeed, someone has told me, and this person is also my uncle." "As expected, it is him," Qin Changxing muttered to himself, because the person who could see the interest at stake must be at a very high level. Otherwise, how could he clear the fog? Because most people were entangled with interests, they did not know that the crisis was coming, and the Qin family could take this opportunity to escape. Chapter 962. He alone is not enough as the protector family of the Qin family. The He family could be said to be the only competent protector family. It was reasonable that they could reach such heights because Old Man He's structure was truly different. Over the years, the He family had been contacting Qin Chang'an through a single line. However, Qin Chang'an had been cultivating in seclusion on Mount Wutai all the time. Moreover, the Qin family could be said to have enjoyed a limitless life in recent years. They did not need the He family's help. Moreover, Old Master Qin had also set a rule in those days that forbade them from contacting other members of the Qin family casually. Consequently, the He family and the Qin family had never interacted with each other. It was not until the Qin family was in trouble that the He family surfaced. Qin Changxing had always been in charge of the three guardian families. Therefore, Old Master, he naturally had the biggest opinion of Qin Changxing. Qin Changxing finally came out of retirement. Of course, it was for the Qin family. He had his reasons for not rushing back to the Qin family, but going to Sanya for a vacation. Old Master, he did not come to see Qin Changxing rashly, nor did he reveal Qin Changxing's whereabouts to anyone, including Qin Sheng. That was why there was such a misunderstanding. Qin Changxing's words had completely convinced Qin Sheng. Although he had been staying on Mount Wutai all these years, his state of mind had become more and more stable. His mind was as still as water and as firm as a rock. When he looked at a problem, he would think out of the circle. Since he had decided to leave the mountain, Qin Changxing had reviewed all the possible situations of the Qin family's crisis and the logic behind it. The most important thing was that everything should be played within the rules of the general trend of the country, instead of just scheming against a few interest groups. That way, the scope would be too small, and the probability of losing would be very high. After all, what happened to the Qin family was not an accident, and the development of the Chang and faction was not an exception. There were other reasons behind everything. If the Qin family wanted to escape, it would not be as easy as they had imagined. However, it was not that there was no chance. Everything had to be carried out according to plan. According to his first uncle's logic, he started to think deeper. It seemed that what his first uncle said was right. No wonder his uncle would say that. It seemed that his uncle and his first uncle had the same idea. He could not help but admire his first uncle's ability. His uncle could see all this because of his position, while his first uncle sorted out the truth as an outsider. No wonder his first uncle was not in a hurry to go home, even though he had left the mountain. It was because the Qin family had not reached that stage yet. Qin Changxing waited until Qin Sheng came back to his senses before he said, "I know about the Qin family's recent affairs. The Zhu family has been very concerned about the Qin family's affairs. Your grandmother has also done her best for you. Otherwise, why would she come back to Beijing for Shanghai? If it weren't for the old madam, I'm afraid that the Song family would not have agreed to this marriage. As for whether you are willing or not, I think you have long stopped considering it." Qin Sheng said, "Song Ruyu is very outstanding. I don't know how many people want to marry her. I'm lucky to marry her." Qin Changxing asked in reply, "But do you really like her? She may not be the woman you love deeply. I've heard a lot of things." Qin Sheng shook his head and smiled bitterly as he said, I do like her, but not to the extent of deep love. Uncle, I know you're talking about Lin Su. It's not a big deal for her to sacrifice her personal happiness for the Qin family. Qin Changxing frowned and said, These things are all your business. How do you choose and what price you will bear in the end? You can think about it yourself. I won't interfere in your decision. Moreover, I have no right to criticize you, right? Qin Sheng said, Uncle, let's not talk about these things. Although Annie doesn't say it, she still loves you in her heart. Otherwise, she would not have come back from Canada. Everything is for you, Uncle. Qin Changxing said thoughtfully, I know that she still loves me, but I also know that she hates me very much. However, I know her temper, so I don't want to say anything more. She is already so old, and there are too many bad relationships in her life. No one can calculate them clearly. However, I still want to thank her for the matter of the Qin family. It's just that her ability is limited, and she is not suitable to deal with these things of the Qin family. Moreover, she values interests too much, which makes it easier for her to make mistakes. I think if you tell her that you want to give up the Chong and system, she will never agree. Qin Sheng was surprised and said, Uncle, how do you know? Qin Changxing smiled faintly and said, She is soft-hearted. She thinks that these things are accumulated by the Qin family bit by bit. She definitely can't bear to give them up. However, she can't see the deeper things. In the face of the general trend of the country, she must be willing to give up. Otherwise, she will end up with nothing. Qin Sheng asked, Uncle, then what should we do next? Qin Changxing said meaningfully, You should already have a plan in your heart. Since you have chosen to give up, you need to start looking for the next one. To put it bluntly, you need to let the next one be the scapegoat. Who has the ability to be the scapegoat? So how to make the next one trust you and how to put on a good show, it all depends on your own ability. Qin Sheng asked tentatively, What about the sixth uncle? Qin Changxing said calmly, He alone is not enough, and his share is not enough. It depends on who wants to share this cake. Qin Sheng said quietly, Uncle, then I know what to do. After talking about these things, Qin Sheng felt that this trip to Sanya was not in vain. Everything was extremely clear. Next, he needed to do something. Qin Sheng could not help but ask, Uncle, what about my father? Qin Changxing let out a long sigh and said, How can such a big thing pass so easily? Everyone is watching. Moreover, he has offended a lot of people these years. I think he should already know his ending. The Qin family should also lie low for a period of time. After hearing this, Qin Sheng felt a little sad. He frowned and said, Is there any other way? I can only try to reduce the sentence by a few years. At that time, try to fight for a medical parole and live a peaceful life. Qin Changxing had already figured out his brother Qin Chang'an's ending. Maybe he had also thought about it. Qin Sheng did not say anything. Maybe this was really the only way. Qin Changxing had nothing to do, so he chatted, Qin Sheng, no matter who you marry, it is your choice. But don't let the girl down. After all, she did nothing wrong, understand? Uncle, I understand. Qin Sheng nodded silently. Of course, he understood what his uncle meant. At this time, Qin Changxing slowly stood up and said, Okay, we have almost talked about what should be talked about. If you have any more questions, you can find me at any time. I'm going to read. Qin Sheng said directly, Uncle, there is nothing else. I'm going back to Beijing in the afternoon. Qin Changxing replied with a smile. Why are you in such a hurry? There are many things in life that do not need to be fought for. It is good to take a break from time to time. It is not easy to come to Sanya. The beach is sunny and you can relax. It is not too late to leave tomorrow. Qin Sheng thought for a moment. Since his uncle had already said so, he was embarrassed to leave in the afternoon. He could only agree to stay for one more day and leave tomorrow. After Qin Changxing went back to the villa to rest, Qin Sheng had nothing to do, so he went to the swimming pool to look for Fu Rong and He Wei, because they were of the same age. Although there was some distance because of his identity, they were not like the bodyguards of the Qin family. Except for Ba He and Brother Wu, no one dared to talk to him. He Wei was really playing in the swimming pool. Qin Sheng did not know where he found the swimming trunks. This swimming pool was much bigger than the swimming pools of ordinary villas. He could swim in it to his heart's content. If it were not for the big waves in Sanya, it would be more comfortable to swim in the sea. But it seemed that He was not bad at swimming. One moment, he was breaststroke, and the next moment, he was butterfly and backstroke. Qin Sheng sighed. Fu Rong did not swim. She just lay under the umbrella and looked at the sea. Qin Sheng walked over and sat beside her. He smiled and said, "Why don't you go for a swim?" "It's too hot," Fu Rong replied. Qin Sheng teased. "Or is it because your body is too sexy and makes us men commit crimes? None of you men are good." Fu Rong snorted. Qin Sheng shrugged and said, "Then don't find a man for the rest of your life. I'll see how long you can endure." Fu Rong did not want to talk about this with Qin Sheng. She would always be at a disadvantage if she talked about this with men. She changed the topic and said, "That old man, is he really your uncle?" "Yes, not only is he real, he's my father's biological brother." "What do you think?" Qin Sheng said casually. Fu Rong was surprised and said, "Then why have we never heard of him before? There are many things that you haven't heard of." "Don't say that you haven't heard of it. I didn't know before either. But you two better keep this a secret. If it is spread out, don't blame me for killing you. I don't think I need to do anything. Old master, he will do it himself." Qin Sheng said, half-jokingly. Fu Rong nodded and said, "You don't need to say the rules. We all know." "That's good," Fu Rong said again. "Then when are we going back?" Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Let's do it tomorrow morning. We'll stay here tonight. I'll send someone to bring the luggage over later. I think the blue sea and blue sky are quite comfortable. At night, we can have a buffet barbecue and drink some wine. It should be very pleasant." After he finished speaking, he directly plunged into the swimming pool and swam happily. In the afternoon, Qin Sheng looked for his eldest uncle and chatted with him for a while. They talked about trivial family matters. His eldest uncle was more concerned about his younger sister, Qin Jing. It seemed that he felt more guilty about her than anything else. He did not know how to meet her. This was a difficult problem that any father would face. No matter how detached Qin Changxing was from worldly affairs, it was the same. At night, Qin Sheng brought He Wei and Fu Rong to the poolside to have a buffet seafood barbecue. The ingredients were all sent from the hotel, so they did not need to worry about anything. They enjoyed the sea breeze, ate seafood, and drank beer. They had not been so comfortable for a long time. If his sister knew that he was living like this in Sanya, would she come over and beat him up? Don't forget about business. Qin Changxing only came over to chat for a while and then left. Although there was no rule of not eating after noon, he had always insisted on being a vegetarian. Even if he returned to the secular world, he would still do so. As they drank and chatted, there was no pressure at all. Fu Rong and He Wei also started to talk. They talked about a lot of things about themselves. Qin Sheng did not hide anything and said some things that were sometimes difficult to say. At least for now, Qin Sheng treated Fu Rong and He Wei as friends. The next morning, Qin Sheng brought Fu Rong and He Wei back to Beijing. Qin Changxing continued to stay in Sanya. He would not return to Beijing in a short period of time. However, when the Qin family needed him, he would naturally come back. Battlefield literature. Chapter 963. After the trip to Sanya, Qin Sheng began to plan his next step. How could he let the Qin family get out of this unscathed? How could he lure the sixth uncle and the others into a compromise? This was not a good show. Anyway, since it had come to this, there was no need to hurry. Everything would go according to the plan. It was just that it was not easy for him to regain control of the Chong and faction. If he gave it to someone else like this, those trusted subordinates of the Qin family in the Chong and faction would probably be disappointed. Then, he would stop targeting Dalian and Shenzhen for the time being. When the Qin family completely got rid of the Chong and faction, he would go all out to deal with them. Finally, he would reorganize the Qin family's existing properties and the properties after the exchange of interests. When some people left, others would come in, and a new Qin family would be born. After Qin Sheng arrived in Beijing, he did not go back to the Qin family immediately. Instead, he went to the He family with Fu Rong and He Wei. He had something to discuss with old Master He. In the He family's garden, Old master, he was sitting in the pavilion feeding the fish. Qin Sheng sat next to him and said, Old he, if I knew you already knew my uncle's whereabouts, I wouldn't have asked others. Old master, you're the one who is sitting on the fishing platform. Qin Sheng, you can't say that. Your uncle told me not to let anyone know his whereabouts, including the Qin family. How could I not listen to him? I'm old, and I've become a toiling old man. Now, worrying about the Qin family's matters is even more troublesome than worrying about the He family's matters. I guess he was afraid that you would not go back to the Qin family. That's why he didn't tell you on purpose. Old master, he said with a smile. Qin Sheng did not blame old master he. He said with a smile, Okay, I'm relieved that the He family will take care of my uncle's affairs. It's not suitable for him to go home now. Let's wait until the Qin family's affairs are settled. But today, I called you here for something else. What is it? Is it your idea or your uncle's? Old master, he put down the plate in his hand and turned around to ask. Qin Sheng put away his playful look and said seriously, Old master, the Qin family is going to give up the Chong system. Please spread the news that the Qin family is going to sell their shares of the Chong and system. Let's see who is willing to take over. What? The Qin family is going to sell their shares of the Chong and system? Why? That's a bit too sudden. It wasn't easy for you to regain control of the Chong and faction. Old man, he was a bit confused and shocked. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, I don't care about this. This is my eldest uncle's idea, as well as mine. What if the He family takes over part of it? Actually, he was also interested in some high-quality assets of the Chong and family. Anyway, it was the same to sell them to others or to the He family. Qin Sheng chuckled and said, Old master, the Qin family has been in trouble for a long time. The Chong department is now a hot potato. Is the He family willing to take over? Old master, he said confidently, Qin Sheng, the Qin family is different from the He family. After the He family takes over, the significance will be different. Moreover, the He family will only take over part of it. Just treat it as us taking advantage of it. As for the rest, we can just sell it to others. We will find a way to back out when the time comes. Since this is a favor to the Qin family, it will also benefit the He family. It's killing two birds with one stone. Qin Sheng didn't think too much about it. He just said, Old master, you have to think about it carefully. Don't mess up when the time comes. Even if it's ruined, it will be a favor to the Qin family. It won't hurt the He family. Don't worry. Old master, he said disapprovingly. Of course, he has his own plan. It was just that his idea was different from the Qin family's. Qin Sheng sighed and said, Old master, I thank the He family on behalf of the Qin family. We owe the He family a favor. When the Qin family completely gets through the trouble, if the He family needs any help in the future, just let me know. What you said is a slap in my face. Without the Qin family, the He family would not be where it is today. All these are just good karma, not a favor. As for the future, let's talk about it later. Old master, he waved his hand and said. Qin Sheng smiled and said, Okay, then I won't disturb you anymore. I'll go back first. I'll visit another day. I'll inform you if there's any news. Old master, he stood up and then asked He Wei to send Qin Sheng off. When Qin Sheng returned to the West Mountain Villa of the Qin family, Zhao Anji and Qin Ran had been waiting for a long time. During this period, they called Qin Sheng several times to urge him. They thought that something had happened to Qin Sheng. Why did you come back so late? Why didn't you answer my call? Qin Ran complained. Qin Sheng explained, After arriving, I went to the He family first and talked with old master He about some things. That's why I was delayed. You haven't had lunch yet, right? Let's talk while eating, Zhao Anji said casually. In the Qin family's dining room, other than Qin Sheng, there were only Zhao Anji and Qin Ran. Qin Jing did not come back from work. After eating a few mouthfuls, Qin Ran asked impatiently, How is it? Did you see Uncle? Zhao Anji looked indifferent. She stood up and looked forward to Qin Sheng's answer. Qin Sheng said honestly, Yes, I saw him. Uncle gave me the address. How could I not see him? What did Uncle say? Didn't he say why he didn't come back? Qin Ran continued to ask. Qin Sheng said slowly, Uncle said that it's not appropriate for him to come back at this time. It will only make things worse for the Qin family. He will come back when the time is right. He also said that he has been keeping an eye on the Qin family. If he really has no other choice, he will come back. Coward. He will be like this for the rest of his life. It's fine if he doesn't come back, Zhao Anji said impatiently. Qin Sheng had to explain, Andy, Uncle is not such a person. He is just more cautious and thoughtful than us. We still have to respect his opinion. I know he always has a reason, Zhao Anji said disdainfully. The resentment between Uncle and Annie was not something that Qin Sheng and Qin Ran could solve. As for when they could reconcile, it was up to them. Qin Ran just asked with concern, Have you told Uncle about Uncle's suggestion? What did Uncle say? Qin Sheng said seriously, I haven't told Uncle's suggestion yet. Uncle gave the same suggestion. It can be said that we have the same idea without prior consultation. Uncle also wants us to give up Chang'an. He said that Chang is now a hot potato. Whoever gets it will be a scourge. It's better to give it to others in exchange for enough benefits. In this way, we can also spare energy for the old man. After hearing this, Zhao Anji and Qin Ran looked at each other and didn't know what to say for a while. Qin Ran was a little shocked. It did not occur to her that Uncle and Uncle actually had the same idea. Zhao Anji was still a little reluctant and felt that it was difficult to give up like this. However, since Zhu Weiguo and Qin Changxing both had the same idea, she had no reason to oppose it. In order to persuade Auntie, Qin Sheng used Uncle as an excuse. Zhao Anji and Qin Ran fell in a deep thought after listening to what Shi had said. Qin Ran couldn't help but say, According to Uncle, the storm of Chang is not over yet. Qin Sheng replied, Sister, I also thought about it carefully. It seems that it is reasonable. The more I think about it, the more I feel that something is wrong. If we continue to control Chang, and it will indeed be very disadvantageous for us, especially for Old Master. So I also decided to give up Chang'an. Qin Ran echoed, Then give it up. I believe in Uncle and Uncle's judgment. Qin Sheng looked at Zhao Anji and said, Annie, what do you think? Zhao Anji sighed softly and said, Since you have already decided, what else can I say? Qin Sheng began to talk about his plan. He said, Since we have all decided, let's start preparing. I have already asked Old Master he to spread the news that our Qin family is ready to sell all the shares we hold in Chang'an. Let's see who is willing to buy it. The price is negotiable. Qin Ran asked, Then what should we do? Qin Sheng thought for a moment and said, Andy, you keep an eye on Sixth Uncle's movements. When the aristocratic families are mature, we will take the initiative to contact Sixth Uncle. I am sure that no one can completely take over the shares of Chang, but Sixth Uncle's power is not enough for them to do so. As for you, sister, you need to let Aunt Chang and Uncle Hao know that we have some conflicts with them. Don't tell them our ultimate purpose. Just tell them the Qin family's difficulties. When the Qin family integrates all the resources, let them take charge of the Qin family's new industry again. It is time for the Qin family to sort things out. Qin Ran directly nodded and said, Okay, I know what to do. Zhao Anji hesitated for a moment and said, There must be something wrong if there is something abnormal. Sixth Uncle will not be so easily fooled. Qin Sheng said disapprovingly, Then it depends on how we act. He believed that Sixth Uncle would definitely take action. He would not miss such an opportunity. However, Sixth Uncle was not that simple. Even if he took action, he might not agree to the Qin family's conditions. Qin Sheng thought of Gongsun in Dalian and Chang Baji in Shenzhen, so he asked them to come back first. When the Qin family finished this important matter, they would deal with these two ungrateful guys. Zhao Anji and Qin Ran had no objection and agreed with Qin Sheng. At this moment, Chang Baji, who was far away in Shenzhen, had been keeping a low profile with Yujbek, because what happened on the first day made them feel a little scared. They did not expect that this person in Shenzhen was so ruthless. He directly showed his power to them. However, they came here with a mission. How could they return without accomplishing anything? Therefore, during this period of time, they had been secretly contacting a few of He Yong's trusted subordinates. Among them were the pawns that the Qin family had placed around He Yong, and the two who had always been dissatisfied with He Yong. In Dalian, what happened 2 days ago made Gongsun want to kill. He believed that there was definitely another force behind Song Shishing supporting him. It was just that he had not figured it out yet. In the past 2 days, he had also begun to frequently contact Song Shishing's trusted subordinates. However, he had been doing it secretly. He must not let Song Shishing find out. Just when Gong Sun and Chang Baji were taking action, they suddenly received a call from Qin Sheng. The content of the call was that he wanted them to leave Song Shishing and He Yong alone and immediately return to Jing City. This made Gong Sun, Chang Baji, and the others a little surprised. They did not expect it to be so sudden. However, this was Qin Sheng's order. No matter how resentful they were, they had to rush back immediately. Chapter 9:64. It must be done in Dalian. Gong Sun and Nan Gong had already changed places. Dabao and Air Bao were secretly keeping an eye on Song Shishing, while Gong Sun and Nan Gong were secretly contacting other people. However, Qin Sheng's phone call completely disrupted their plans. Nan Gong was somewhat indignant, while Gong Sun did not have any opinion. What does Qin Sheng mean? We finally made a breakthrough in Dalian, but he asked us to go back. Then why did we come to Dalian? Nan Gong was somewhat annoyed. She had always had a problem with Qin Sheng. He did not have the decisiveness of his foster father, which led to the current situation of the Qin family. Gong Sun said faintly, Nan Gong, since Qin Sheng called, it means that something happened. Otherwise, why would he be so anxious? Let's put aside the matter in Dalian first. Anyway, Song Shishing is here, and he can't run away. We can deal with him next time. Nan Gong snorted. Gong Sun had no choice but to make arrangements. Let's book the earliest train back tomorrow. When Dabao and Air Bao arrive later, let them know. Let them keep an eye on Song Shishing first. Nan Gong did not say anything. She was just sulking. Half an hour later, Dabao and Air Bao arrived at the small hotel where Gong Sun and Nan Gong were staying. This was an ordinary express hotel opened by Big Uncle's friend. It was relatively quiet in the suburbs, not easy to be discovered, and there was no need to go through check-in procedures. When Gong Sun told them that they were going back to Beijing, Dabao was very surprised and said, Why are you in such a hurry? What about the matter in Dalian? We have something to do in Beijing, so we have to go back first. Let's put aside the matter in Dalian first. You keep an eye on it secretly. When we finish our business in Beijing, we will come back then, Gong Sun said. Air Bao nodded silently and said, Okay. However, Nan Gong Meiji had only been here for a few days and was about to leave. They were somewhat reluctant to part with her. After spending a few days with Nan Gong Meiji, they began to like her more and more. Although she had a bad temper and they couldn't beat her, they still liked her. What could they do? Air Bao said somewhat mischievously, Nan Gong Meiji, we will think about you after you leave. We will wait for you to come to Dalian next time. At that time, we will show you around. Nan Gong stared at Air Bao and did not say anything. Gong Sun did not know whether to laugh or cry as he said, Let's talk about what you have found at Song Shishing's place in the past 2 days. Recently, Song Shishing has been in contact with 2 strange men. I heard that they are not from Dalian. Moreover, we heard from the servants in Song Shishing's villa that these 2 strange men have been mentioning 2 names that they have never heard of. The Bao told them what they had inquired about. Song Shishing has been in contact with 2 strange men. Gong Sun asked curiously, Which 2 names? One is called Sixth Uncle, the Bao replied truthfully. Sixth Uncle, it really is him. I was wondering where Song Shishing got his courage from. It turns out that he has Sixth Uncle supporting him from behind. Sixth Uncle's tentacles are too long. He actually wants to take drastic measures. It looks like he really wants to kill the Qin family, said Gong Sun with narrowed eyes. Air Bao asked confusedly, Mr. Gong Sun, who is this 6th uncle? What's his background? Let's not talk about this first. Who is the other person's name? Gong Sun continued asking. Dabao slowly said, The other one is called Elder Long. What? Gong Sun was shocked. Dabao repeated. He said the other one is called Elder Long. After confirming the answer again, Gong Sun instantly fell into deep thought. He had not heard this name for a long time. Elder Long. He did not expect that after so many years, this name would appear again. He was wondering why so many things were so strange. It turned out that this force had appeared. Then many things could be understood. It seemed that Elder Long had contacted Sixth Uncle. It seemed that he had to return to Beijing as soon as possible. Otherwise, the Qin family was likely to be in trouble again, because this Elder Long was the real enemy of the Qin family. In contrast, Nangong did not have any conflict in Shenzhen. After Qin Sheng hung up the phone, Chang Baji had already booked the plane tickets. They would also return to Beijing the next morning. During this period of time in Shenzhen, life was really difficult. They had been hiding here and there. When did the Qin family become so cautious? Whether it was Wu Gij or Bok, they did not ask why. Because naturally, it was because of other things. When Gongsun Nangong, Chang Baji, Wu Gij, and Bok returned to the Qin family, it was already noon the next day. Zhao Anji and Qin Ran were not there. They had gone to the company. Qin Sheng asked the kitchen to prepare a table of sumptuous lunch for them. Of course, he also wanted to know what had happened during this period of time. During this period of time, everyone has worked hard. I know that you were a little resentful about being suddenly called back by me. That is because there are more important things recently. We will talk about Song Shixin and He Yong later. You have suffered during this period of time. I will let you vent your anger. This glass of wine, I propose a toast to everyone. Qin Sheng held a glass of red wine and smiled. No one said anything, although Nangong was resentful. After seeing Qin Sheng, he did not ask anymore. After a toast, everyone drank up. After sitting down, Qin Sheng first invited everyone to eat. Then he asked, "Tell me, what is the situation in Dalian and Shenzhen?" Chang Baji took the initiative to say, "The situation in Shenzhen is similar to what I reported to you on the phone. He Yong has already made up his mind to rebel against the Qin family. At present, he has already transferred his assets and so on. We just arrived in Shenzhen and there was an accident. If we were not cautious, it might not be so easy for us to come back. He Yong is quite bold. No wonder the old man dared to put him in Shenzhen," Qin Sheng said, squinting his eyes. Chang Baji continued, "We all suspect that there is someone behind He Yong. Otherwise, he would not be so bold. However, he still left a lot of evidence. We have contacted our informants. According to the situation we understand, as long as the Qin family controls these things, it is enough to make He Yong die without a burial place. At that time, no matter how much the Qin family has eaten, they will have to pay back. That's good. In this case, we are not in a hurry," Qin Sheng said with a smile. Then he looked at Gongsun and said, "Uncle Gongsun, what is the situation in Dalian?" Gongsun said unhurriedly, "The situation in Dalian is similar to that in Shenzhen. It is just that Song Shixin was not in a hurry to take action at the beginning. He chose to take action after seeing two groups of people. In the end, he was defeated by me. I just gave him another chance. However, these two groups of people are not small. I think they should be the ones behind the people in Shenzhen." "Those two groups of people, who are they?" Qin Sheng asked straightforwardly. Gongsun said faintly, "One group of people is Sixth Uncle. This is expected. Sixth Uncle has been targeting the Qin family, so it is unexpected that he supports them. TSK, TSK, TSK. Sixth Uncle, you really put in a lot of effort. This is causing trouble in our backyard. No wonder Song Shixin and He Yong are so bold to cling to Sixth Uncle. How can they not be confident? After a period of time, I will make them regret it." Qin Sheng snorted coldly. After he reconciled with Sixth Uncle, it would be easy to deal with these two at that time. Qin Sheng frowned and asked, "Who is the other group of people?" Gongsun took 2 deep breaths and said slowly, "A force that you may not know, but Master Qin knows." "Who?" Qin Sheng asked eagerly. "The sworn enemy of the Qin family in the past, Elder Long," Gongsun finally gave the answer. Hearing this strange name, Qin Sheng was a little confused. He really did not know anything about Elder Long. However, he heard that this was the sworn enemy of the Qin family in the past, so it was obviously not simple. He asked confusedly, "Elder Long?" Gongsun's face was a little pale as he said, "Well, a person who disappeared for a long time. Master Qin has been looking for him for many years. However, you don't need to know who he is. You only need to know that he may be the mastermind behind your mother's accident back then. This was something that he and the whole Qin family were not willing to face, but they had to face it. After hearing this, Qin Sheng suddenly stood up as if he had been electrocuted. He clenched his fists and stared at Gong Sun. His eyes were full of murderous intent, and he was almost in a state of rage. The atmosphere instantly dropped to the freezing point because he had been waiting for this person to show up. In the past, Qin Sheng did not know who the mastermind behind his mother's accident was. But now that he knew, he must find him and then tear him into pieces to avenge his mother. It was this person who caused him and his sister to lose their mother. Whenever he thought of that person's voice and smile, which made him cry so many times in his dreams, he would be filled with hatred and murderous intent. He could do nothing but avenge his mother's death. Finally, Qin Sheng gnashed his teeth and said, "I must make him die without a burial place." After that, Qin Sheng directly gave an order to Chong Baji. "Lao Chong, from today on, you only have one task, which is to find this elder Long for me. However, don't act rashly. I will do it by myself." Chong Baji immediately stood up and said, "Understood." Everyone could see how determined Qin Sheng was. After all, this was his mother's murderer. Now that Qin Sheng had grown up, of course, he would kill his enemy by himself. Otherwise, he would be too ashamed to see his mother. However, everyone was also very clear that this Elder Long was not an ordinary person. Otherwise, the Qin family and the Zhu family would not have taken action against him for so many years. Qin Sheng did not want to tell others about this news for the time being, so he immediately told everyone present not to leak this news. If anyone leaked this news, he would be ruthless. He would wait until the time was ripe. If he told others now, they might worry that he would take risks out of desperation. Moreover, they only knew that this person had appeared, but didn't know his specific whereabouts. This time, he was not only the Qin family's opponent, but also the Zhu family's opponent. If the Zhu family knew about this, they would definitely take action, because today, the Zhu family had the power to do so. Chong Baji's task had been arranged, and the others' tasks were still pending. Only Gong Sun was going to help Zhao Anji. In the following days, everyone would definitely be busy. Since Elder Long and the sixth uncle had joined hands, anything could happen. What Qin Sheng needed to do, at least, was to break this alliance. Consequently, it was imperative to give up the Chong in school. Battlefield Literature. Chapter 965. In the evening, when Zhao, Anji, and Qin Ran came back, they found Qin Sheng sitting alone in the garden outside in a daze. No one knew what he was thinking about. Qin Ran asked Qin Jing to call Qin Sheng in for dinner. "Brother, what are you thinking about?" Qin Jing came over and stood behind Qin Sheng, massaging his shoulders. Although Qin Jing couldn't help much, she knew how to be a good girl. As long as she didn't cause trouble for her brother, sister, and mother, she wouldn't go out and play. Every day, she would split her time between home and work. After work, she would go straight home because her mother said it was dangerous outside. She was afraid that someone would use her to threaten the Qin family. Naturally, Qin Jing was obedient and stayed at home even on weekends. Qin Jing would grow up eventually, because people would grow up after experiencing things. What she could do was to do what she should do, because she was not capable of helping the Qin family yet. Although her days at home were boring, she still had her family to chat with. Everyone cared about her. When she had nothing to do, she would play the piano or swim to exercise. Occasionally, she would play games or read books. Anyway, there was everything at home, so she wouldn't get sick from being bored. Besides, her sister and mother would occasionally take her out shopping and eating. In fact, everything was quite good. Qin Sheng held his sister's hand and said, "I'm thinking my sister is already so big. It's time for her to fall in love. I just don't know which guy will be so lucky." "Brother, I don't want to fall in love. I want to stay with you, mom and sister. We will never be separated." Qin Jing pouted and hugged Qin Sheng tightly. Qin Sheng laughed and said, "I also want to do that. But you will eventually grow up, get married, and have children. The same goes for your sister. As long as our hearts are the same, We will be together forever. After I finish my work, I will take you out to have fun. What do you think? Qin Jing nodded quickly and said, Okay, brother, you are so nice. Qin Sheng actually liked chatting with his sister, but most of the time he was too busy and did not have time to accompany her. He still felt a little guilty. After all, the Qin family's affairs were more important, and he could not take care of his sister's feelings when he was busy. Yeah, do you think it's better in China or Canada? Qin Sheng asked. Qin Jing replied without thinking, Of course it's better in China. Why? But you grew up in Canada, Qin Sheng said with some surprise. Qin Jing said slowly, Because there are brothers, sisters, and uncles in the country. Speaking of this, Qin Jing suddenly paused and then said with red eyes, Brother, I miss uncle. Qin Sheng didn't know how to answer this question. She didn't want to lie to her sister, either. Although she didn't say many things, she knew them in her heart. Qin Sheng had no choice but to say, Okay, I'll take you to see uncle next time. Brother, I'm sorry. Qin Jing also felt that she shouldn't have said that. Everyone in the Qin family missed their uncle, but some things had already happened, and the Qin family couldn't change it easily. Qin Sheng comforted her and said, Why did you say sorry? You don't have to say sorry. Do you understand? Of course, Qin Sheng knew what his sister was thinking. These things had nothing to do with her. Naturally, there was no need for him to apologize. Oh, I almost forgot. Big sister asked me to call you to go eat. Big brother, let's go eat, said Qin Jing. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, You go ahead and eat first. I'm thinking about something. I'll be there soon. Qin Jing didn't want to disturb her brother anymore, so she said, Brother, come here quickly. I'll go back first. After Qin Jing left, Qin Sheng continued to sit here and enjoy the spring breeze. It was already the end of September, and a national day would come in 2 days. It was a national day, and the weather was not so sultry anymore. At night, it was a little chilly. This kind of weather was actually the most comfortable. What was Qin Sheng thinking about? Of course, he was thinking about the enemy who killed his mother, Elder Long. If what Uncle Gong's son said was right, he must take revenge. However, there were still some things that Qin Sheng couldn't figure out. Who on earth was this Elder Long? Back then, he could make the Qin family so embarrassed, and even the Zhu family couldn't find him. Taking a step back, these years, the Qin family was no longer the Qin family in the past. Why didn't the old man take revenge on him? Why didn't the Zhu family say anything? Was it because Elder Long had disappeared completely, or because of other reasons? Qin Sheng thought the former was more likely. Otherwise, based on the old man's temper and the characters of his uncle and aunt, how could they just let it go? Moreover, his grandmother was here. However, no matter what, Elder Long had reappeared now, and he had grown up. No matter what others thought, he had to take revenge. He couldn't let his mother die like this, and he couldn't let go of the pain his grandmother had suffered for a lifetime. As a son, he had to take revenge. After a while, Qin Ran walked over again and said worriedly, Qin Sheng, what's wrong with you? I feel something is wrong. Sister, don't think too much. Nothing is wrong. I'm just thinking about what we should do next, Qin Sheng said perfunctorily. Qin Ran said softly, Don't worry. Take it slow. Your health is more important. Don't let the pressure crush you, understand? Qin Sheng nodded and said, Sister, I got it. By the way, sister, how are Aunt Chong and Uncle Hao? Are they against it? Qin Ran explained, Alas, how can they not be against it? Even if they're not against it, the people under them are against it. This concerns the fate of so many people. Although they didn't say it, they must think so in their hearts. Qin Sheng thought for a while and said, We can't take care of them. At this time, the Qin family is the most important thing. Moreover, they can find good jobs after leaving Chang'an. Besides, if they are capable, they can join our Qin family again. I'll take some time to invite Aunt Chong and Uncle Hao to dinner these days. We'll talk about it then. Qin Ran said, Okay, that's the only way. Qin Sheng stood up with a smile and said, Okay, sister, let's go to dinner. In Dalian, in the evening, Song Shixin invited Elder Long's confidant and sixth uncle's nephew to dinner, accompanied by 2 of his confidants. During this period of time, They had been looking for Gongsuen's whereabouts. It did not occur to them that the two living people had disappeared just like that, which made Song Shirshin very angry. It should be noted that his life was tied to this. If the Qin family found a chance, they would definitely kill him. He was not tired of being a local tyrant. At this time, Song Shirshin's confidant walked in and said to Song Shirshin, "Boss, Gongsun and that woman have returned to Beijing. Our brothers found their whereabouts at the high-speed railway station." "What? Back to Beijing?" Song Shirshin was a little shocked. The confidant took out his mobile phone and showed it to Song Shirshin. He said, "It's true. This is a photo. We also confirmed from the surveillance that they have left Dalian." Song Shirshin frowned and waved his hand as he said, "I see. You can leave now." After the man left, Song Shirshin looked at the others and said, "Everyone, Gongsun and that woman have returned to Beijing. What do you think? Back to Beijing? This is a little strange." Sixth uncle's nephew frowned and said. Elder Long's confidant was also a little confused. Why did they suddenly return to Beijing? He sneered and said, "No matter what they are up to, we have to hurry up. We have to report to Beijing in case something goes wrong." Sixth uncle's nephew echoed, "Well, let's report it first." One of Song Shirshin's confidants said, disapprovingly, "I don't think it's a big deal. Dalian is now an iron bucket. No one can infiltrate." I think Gongsun also felt that there was no way out, so he ran back with his tail between his legs. Another person also echoed, "Lao Li is right. They will die if they stay here. What else can they do?" Song Shirshin did not dare to be careless. He still listened to the advice of Elder Long's confidant and sixth uncle's nephew. He said, "You two, let's report to Beijing first and see what sixth uncle and the others have to say. I don't think it's so simple. The Qin family will not let me go so easily." Everyone reached an agreement and immediately reported to sixth uncle and Elder Long. At the same time, the people in Shenzhen were almost the same. They found that Chang Baji and the others had left Shenzhen and immediately reported to Elder Long and sixth uncle. Late at night in Beijing, sixth uncle was on the phone with Elder Long. Sixth uncle was very confused and said, "What does the Qin family want to do? They suddenly withdrew their people in Dalian and Shenzhen. Are they going to do something else?" Elder Long did not care about these trivial things at all and said, "Don't worry about these trivial things. Let's continue to stay there unless there are other movements. I believe they will go back sooner or later. The Qin family style is not like this. The more chaotic it is, the better. I can't wait for Qin Sheng to go to Dalian or Shenzhen in person. At that time, I could take action on my side." Sixth uncle could only persuade him again. "Elder Long, it's better not to do this unless it's a last resort. Let's wait for the news first." Elder Long hesitated for a moment and said, "If you want news, I heard a piece of news. What do you think after hearing it?" Sixth uncle was a little surprised. What kind of news did he not know? Elder Long said slowly, "I heard from a few old men that the Qin family intends to sell their shares of the Chang group. Now they are waiting for a buyer. It seems that several families are already interested. If someone else enters the Chang and group, your dream of controlling the Chang and group will probably be shattered." Sixth uncle was a little shocked. He did not expect that the Qin family would do this. After coming to his senses, sixth uncle was a little angry and said, "The Qin family is crazy. They have already controlled the Chang and group, and now they want to sell it. I'm afraid that there is something wrong with their brains." Elder Long sneered and said, "I don't care what they will do. I just want to tell you this news. It is said that the He family is going to cooperate with several big families to take over the shares. Because the price offered by the Qin family is very favorable, I'm afraid that if those old men enter the game, I'm afraid that you will not have a chance." Sixth uncle was silent because it seemed that it was true. Although the Chang and group was in constant trouble, it was still there. If the Qin family sold their shares to others and other people entered the Chang and group, it would not be easy for him to deal with the Qin family. Therefore, this matter was a little tricky. "I won't let them succeed," Uncle Lu said firmly. Master Long had already thought of countermeasure. He said unhurriedly, "In fact, there is another way. Do you want to hear it?" "What is it?" Sixth uncle asked eagerly. Elder Long said slowly, That is, I can help you get the shares of the Qin family. In this way, you can control the Chong and system completely. However, you have to listen to me as to what to do next. We'll both take what we need. What do you think? After sixth uncle heard Elder Long's words, he immediately understood what Elder Long meant. As expected of an old fox, he could even think of this idea. However, he didn't know if the Qin family would sell their shares to their enemy. Chapter 966. They were all fine. The National Day came soon. During this period, the Qin family was safe and sound. The Chong and school was still the same as before. Except for the joint investigation team, there seemed to be no more disturbances. However, the executives of the Chong and school were used to it and knew what to say and what not to say. However, there were some things that the Qin family could not decide. For example, the Qin family could not control the trusted subordinates of the sixth uncle. The Qin family did not know what they had said. Now that it was the holiday, everyone could have a good rest. One day, Qin Sheng accompanied Song Ruyu to go shopping. Maybe Song Ruyu wanted to change herself because she asked Qin Sheng to go on a date. Qin Sheng was surprised. However, Song Ruyu said that they were not allowed to go to luxury shopping malls like SK. Qin Sheng deliberately joked that no one had a mind. It was too expensive to raise a wife. As a result, they chose the nearest city, Joy City. After Gongsun Chong, Baji, and the others came back, Qin Sheng was not afraid of any danger. However, Brother Wu stayed close to Qin Sheng to protect him because Chong Baji had a mission to find Master Long. As for how to find Master Long, it was up to him. However, Qin Sheng told Chong Baji that he could use any resources of the Qin family. He had told Uncle Gongsun that he could use all the resources of the Qin family, which could be regarded as a logistical support for Chong Baji. Joy City, which was owned by Kafko, was the favorite shopping mall of young people. Shidan Joy City was close to Song Ruyu's residential area, so they chose it. Shopping, watching movies, and eating were the favorite ways of young people. Qin Sheng and Song Ruyu's date was not out of the ordinary. However, Song Ryu did not buy anything when they were shopping. She just wanted shops that she was interested in. Finally, she bought some books, which seemed to be her favorite thing to do. After watching a comedy movie, which was Song Ruyu's favorite, they found a Korean barbecue restaurant nearby for dinner. Qin Sheng didn't expect that Song Ryu liked comedies, which didn't seem to be her style. Normally, Song Ryu preferred literary films with depth. However, as long as Song Ryu liked it, it didn't matter. During dinner, Qin Sheng asked casually, "Is Song Hushing still in detention?" "Yes, Grandpa told me to let him out after the National Day. But he's still the same bad-tempered boy. I can't do anything about it. If he weren't my brother, I would never talk to him again," Song Ryu said angrily. She really didn't know what Song Hushing was thinking. Song Ryu smiled. Qin Sheng did not care and said, "He is him, and you are you. I will try my best to avoid him in the future. But if he goes too far, I will beat him. I will beat him. Anyway, we are very close. Sheng and I will be. Just be gentle." Song Ryu didn't try to persuade him. Instead, she said so. Qin Sheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "You haven't married into the Qin family yet, but you are already siding with an outsider. No wonder Song Hushing has such a bad opinion of me. If it were me, I would also be jealous." Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. "You are not married into the Qin family, but you are already siding with an outsider. No wonder Song Hushing has a bad opinion of me. If it were me, I would be jealous." When they were almost done eating, Qin Sheng said, "I'm going to go back to Xin during the National Day holiday. I told you last time that I'm going to pay my respects to my grandfather. I can also visit my foster parents and sister. Can you go back with me?" When they were almost done, Qin Sheng said, "The day after tomorrow. I will send a car to pick you up." Song Ryu said, "The day after tomorrow. I will send a car to pick you up." "Okay." Song Ryu agreed happily. Qin Sheng continued, "I'm going to take my sister and aunt to the foot of the Great Wall to relax. Aunt asked me to ask you if you want to go with us. She has something to discuss with you. After all, we will be engaged in half a month. I have nothing to do. Let's go." Song Ryu still agreed. It seemed that she would agree to everything Qin Sheng said. It seemed that she was not the same Song Ryu anymore. Qin Sheng did not expect that Song Ryu would agree to these two things so easily. He was somewhat moved. It seemed that Song Ryu had changed a lot for him, but it was also a good thing. He liked this Song Ryu more and had no reason to dislike her. If Song Ryu had been an unruly and capricious young lady, Qin Sheng would have had a headache. For the sake of the Qin family, he had to choose the marriage alliance. However, he was the one who would suffer in the end. Even if they got married, they would sleep in the same bed and dream different dreams. In the end, they would probably go their separate ways. It was also possible that they would divorce. There were many marriages like this in Siju City. After dinner, Qin Sheng drove Song Ryu home. After the first time he went to Song Ryu's home, it was natural for him to go to her home again. However, Qin Sheng did not stay for long and went back. The next day, when they went to the foot of the Great Wall to relax, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu took the same car. Zhao Anji took Qin Ran and Qin Jing with her so that they would not disturb the couple's world. In fact, Zhao Anji and Qin Ran were quite worried about the relationship between Qin Sheng and Song Ryu. After all, although they had known each other before the marriage alliance, they did not have any emotional foundation. Although it seemed that their relationship was progressing well, they were not engaged yet. Even if they were engaged, they were not married yet. If they quarreled one day, they might break up. Many people in Siju City had gotten engaged and then canceled their engagement. Therefore, after Zhao Anji and Qin Ran recognized Song Ryu, they took the initiative to get closer to each other. After all, the Qin family really needed this marriage. After arriving at the hotel at the foot of the Great Wall, they took a short rest and went out for a stroll. The women walked in front of them. Qin Ran kept chatting with Song Ryu. Zhao Anji also talked a lot. Only Qin Jing did not pay much attention to Song Ryu. Occasionally, she would say a few perfunctory words to her. Song Ryu did not know why, nor did she ask. After all, not everyone would like you. Being too stubborn would only make you more tired. Of course, Qin Sheng knew what was going on because Yaya still liked Lin Su. This was also because of the first impression. She had been in contact with Lin Su for the first time, and Lin Su had taken special care of her. She had thought that this fairy sister would be her future sister-in-law, but she did not expect that there would be such a thing. Qin Sheng broke up with Lin Su and chose Song Ryu in the end. Now they were about to get engaged and married. Qin Jing knew this was related to the future of the Qin family. If her brother married Song Ryu, the Qin family could get rid of troubles earlier. She admitted that Song Ryu's sister was beautiful and outstanding, but she could not get close to her or like her because it seemed that she had betrayed Sister Lin Su. Every time when all the members of the Qin family were together, especially when Song Ryu was there, she would think that it would be better if Song Ryu was Sister Lin Su. On the way, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu took a walk in the woods outside. Song Ryu took the initiative to say, "It seems that Qin Jing does not like me. She has met Lin Su." Qin Sheng said honestly. Song Ryu chuckled and said, "Then I understand. It seems that she likes Lin Su." Qin Sheng murmured, "She also likes you, but she does not want to betray Lin Su." This is how children think, very naive and naive. Qin Sheng murmured to himself. Song Ryu thought of meeting Qin Sheng's adoptive parents and another sister tomorrow. So she asked, "Have your adoptive parents seen Lin Su?" "I've seen them all," Qin Sheng replied straightforwardly. Song Ryu said thoughtfully, "It seems that I should behave well when I meet them tomorrow, or it will be difficult for me to pass. Although they are not your biological parents, you are closer to them after so many years, right?" "Yes, although they do not say that they are my biological parents, they are more affectionate than my biological parents. After all, they took care of me when I was growing up." Qin Sheng sighed with emotion. It seemed that since he returned to the Qin family, he had been alienated from the Lin family. It was not subconscious, but because there were too many things to do in the Qin family. Qin Sheng did not have much time to care about others, and could only call them occasionally. Song Ryu asked casually, "You must have had a hard time these years." Qin Sheng smiled and said, "Not bad. Except that I was like a wild child when I was young, I was good after I went to school. The Lin family gave me warmth. Otherwise, I would have been afraid that I would have gone astray these years. Song Ryu asked curiously, "Did you have a girlfriend when you were in school?" Qin Sheng was a little embarrassed and did not know how to explain it. After all, although women did not say it, he did not know what they were thinking. Qin Sheng did not know why Song Ryu asked about it. Song Ryu smiled and said, "You don't have to tell me. I am just asking casually." Qin Sheng thought for a while and explained, "Actually, it is nothing. We had a girlfriend in high school until we graduated from college. Then we broke up because of something. We met again later, but we're just friends." Song Ryu continued to ask, "Where is she now?" Qin Sheng did not hide it. Who knew what Song Ryu was thinking? So he replied, "She used to be in Shanghai. Then she went back to Xi'an." Song Ryu seemed to be interested in gossip and continued to ask, "Is she doing well?" Qin Sheng was silent for a while and said, "I don't know. Maybe she is doing well." Song Ryu said thoughtfully, "I think she loves you very much." Qin Sheng did not say anything this time because he did not know what to say. He had let Su Qin down because he had met Lin Su. He could not give up Su Qin for Lin Su. In the end, he had broken Su Qin's heart and made her leave Shanghai with regrets. But what happened in the end? He had thought that he would never be separated from Lin Su for the rest of his life. But in the end, he gave up on Lin Su because of the Qin family and chose Song Ryu. Although there were some things that he couldn't decide, in the eyes of most people, he was also a scumbag. They were all good, but he was not. Thinking of these things, Qin Sheng felt a little sad and felt a little lonely. Song Ryu thought that Qin Sheng might be sad because of the past. She was too embarrassed to continue to ask more questions. She just accompanied Qin Sheng to continue to walk in the woods. After returning to the hotel, Qin Sheng took a nap. When he woke up, he found that Song Ryu and Yaya were chatting happily, which was not the way they got along with each other in the morning. Qin Sheng was a little surprised. When Yaya went to the bathroom, Qin Sheng secretly asked Song Ryu, "What are you doing?" Song Ryu blinked and said, "This is a secret between me and Yaya. You will know it later." Qin Sheng was confused. What was going on? Battlefield literature. Chapter 967. A good friend. What happened when Qin Sheng was sleeping? What happened between Song Ryu and Qin Jing? What kind of magic did Song Ryu use to make Qin Jing have a better impression of her? Or did Qin Jing have to make friends with Song Ryu because of other people's pressure? Now it seemed that it was the former. However, Qin Sheng asked Song Ryu no matter how hard he asked, which made Qin Sheng speechless and amused. In the end, he had to give up. At least the relationship between Song Ryu and Yaya had changed. They wouldn't get along so awkwardly in the future. As for what exactly happened, he could ask Yaya secretly when he went back. In the evening, it was time for them to go home. Everything went well today, and everyone had a good time. It had been a long time since the whole family went out to play. It seemed that since the Qin family's incident, everyone had been busy and had no time to care about such things. When they were about to go home, there was a small episode. Yaya was hit on by someone who pestered her for her contact information. But Yaya didn't want to talk to her at all. Unexpectedly, this rich second-generation or playboy who drove a Land Rover didn't let her go. It was Yaya's fault for coming out. When Qin Sheng and Song Ryu came out, they happened to see it. Gong Sun and the others followed them and were about to stop it. What a fool. Didn't he know who he was? However, Qin Sheng stopped them. After thinking for a while, he took Song Ryu over. They didn't know what Qin Sheng wanted to do, but they didn't need to make a fuss over such a trivial matter. It was okay as long as the other party left. If the other party didn't know what was good for her and continued to act tough, she shouldn't blame him for not looking at the almanac when he went out today. Today, Yaya was dressed very young and beautiful. She wore a pair of white shoes and a pair of shorts. She was wearing a tight black camisole that exposed her shoulders and waist. Although the little girl hadn't developed well and was a little thin, she was beautiful and elegant. After all, the Qin family's genes were so good. It was no wonder that she was hit on. If a man was a gentleman, he should take the initiative to leave after being rejected. As for how to contact her again later, that would depend on the man's ability or fate. However, if he pestered her relentlessly, it would be a little like a hooligan. "What's going on?" Qin Sheng asked unhappily after walking over. When you saw her brother and sister coming over, she retreated behind Qin Sheng. She did not forget to glare at the lecher. She had no interest in this kind of man. She liked men like her brother. The man in fashionable brand glanced at Qin Sheng and then secretly looked at Song Ruyu. He couldn't help but feel that the man in front of him was really lucky. He was envious of the two beauties. He chuckled and said, "Nothing. I just want this beauty's contact information." Qin Sheng said angrily, "I don't care who you are. Don't harass my sister. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." Originally, the rich playboy wanted to respond politely. However, when he heard Qin Sheng's tough words, he said somewhat angrily, "Do you know who it is? Then do you know who I am?" Qin Sheng deliberately imitated the man's tone and asked arrogantly. The man did not take Qin Sheng seriously at all. He asked with interest, "Who are you?" Qin Sheng said unhurriedly, "My name is Qin Sheng. If you haven't heard of me, you can call your friends who are better than you." Before Qin Sheng could finish listening, the man was already dumbfounded when he heard Qin Sheng's words. He was doing pretty well in Sijio City, and his family had some background. During this period of time, the hottest news was the marriage between the first young master of the Qin family and the goddess of the Song family. Moreover, the Qin family was also involved. How could he not hear the name Qin Sheng? This was the first young master of the Qin family. However, he did not expect that he would meet him here today. He was really unlucky. The man immediately thought about what to do. He did not have the ability to offend the first young master of the Qin family. Even a skinny camel was bigger than a horse. Moreover, he was going to marry the goddess of the Song family. If he really offended him, he would be killed. The man could not help but regret that he could not walk away when he saw a beautiful woman. He did not know that she was the first young master of the Qin family. After the man came to his senses, he immediately smiled apologetically and said, Oh, it turns out to be young Master Qin. I'm sorry, young Master Qin. I didn't know that she was young Master Qin's sister. I'm here to apologize to young Master Qin and his sister. Young Master Qin, I have something to do, so I have to go now. I'll pay you a visit another day." After saying this, the man did not wait for Qin Sheng's response. He directly turned around and slipped away. He did not even dare to look back, for fear that Qin Sheng would call him. Seeing this, Song Ruyu did not know whether to laugh or cry. She did not expect that Qin Sheng would be so famous now. He just said his name, and the man was so scared that he ran away. As for Qin Jing, it seemed that she had not come to her senses yet. She still did not know what had happened. Why did the man run away? Song Ruyu deliberately joked, "You're so famous now." Qin Sheng laughed at himself and said, "This is called being notorious. If one day children cry when they hear my name, I will be successful and famous." Song Ruyu stared at Qin Sheng and did not want to talk to him. At this time, the others had already come back. They did not ask what had happened. They just laughed and drove back to the city. The next day, Qin Sheng took Song Ruyu back to Xian. Although it was not the first time for Song Ruyu to go to Xian, it was the first time for her to go there as Qin Sheng's girlfriend and fiancée. Moreover, this time, they would not only pay respects to the old master of the Qin family, but also meet Qin Sheng's adoptive parents. Therefore, Song Ruyu attached great importance to this trip. Zhao Anji had prepared a lot of gifts for Qin Sheng's adoptive parents. Qin Ran had also prepared her own gifts. Together with the gifts that Qin Sheng and Song Ruyu had prepared, the car was full of gifts. Fortunately, Qin Sheng took a private plane and brought bodyguards with him. Otherwise, he would not know how to carry these gifts. It was not the Lin family who came to pick them up, but Lu Changxi, who was quite familiar with Qin Sheng and Xian. Lu Changxi had helped Qin Sheng a lot in Xian, especially in the matter of the Qin family. He helped Uncle Lin take back the property that belonged to him. Qin Sheng had always kept this in mind. However, Lu Changxi had never asked Qin Sheng for help. Even though the Qin family had been in constant trouble, Lu Changxi did not stay away from Qin Sheng to avoid arousing suspicion. He still often contacted Qin Sheng. This time, When he heard that Qin Sheng was going back to Xi'an as the host, he insisted on picking him up at the airport in person, which made Qin Sheng feel a little embarrassed. When they met, they naturally hugged each other affectionately and exchanged greetings. After that, Liu Changxi greeted Song Ruyu. He said that he had met Song Ruyu in Beijing before, but he was too embarrassed to take the initiative to get to know her. Who would have thought that there was a light at the end of the tunnel? Song Ryu also greeted Liu Changxi politely. She said that Qin Sheng had mentioned Liu Changxi's name to her several times and that Liu Changxi was one of his best friends in Xi'an. Liu Changxi was quite pleased to hear this. As for whether Qin Sheng had mentioned it or not, he did not care at all. Song Ryu was very beautiful and much more famous than Qin Sheng. Liu Changxi, who was far away in Xi'an, had heard of her. However, Liu Changxi knew his place and did not pay too much attention to Song Ryu. Otherwise, this woman would only feel disgusted. Liu Changxi knew that this woman was not simple. Moreover, she was Qin Sheng's fiancée, the future hostess of the Qin family. However, Liu Changxi could not help but admire Qin Sheng's good luck with women. He knew Su Qin, the only daughter of the famous Mr. Su in Xi'an. They had been together since they were in high school. They had been dating for 6 years. Mr. Su even treated Qin Sheng as his own son. Unfortunately, they did not get together in the end, even though they were not destined to be together. Liu Changxi had met Lin Su later. She was a woman that everyone envied. She was perfect both in terms of her physical condition and her condition. It seemed that she liked Qin Sheng very much. Liu Changxi had thought that they could be together. However, so many things had happened later. Some time ago, he heard that Qin Sheng was going to unite with the goddess of the Song family by marriage. Liu Changxi was stunned for a long time before he came to his senses. At first, he did not believe it. Then he called his friends in Beijing and confirmed it. Even he was somewhat envious of Qin Sheng's luck with women. The goddess of the Song family was so famous that he had heard many people talk about her. Many families in Sijio City wanted Song Ruyu to be their daughter-in-law or granddaughter-in-law. Moreover, many young talents in Sijio City had tried hard to woo her. He did not expect that Qin Sheng would win her heart in the end. This was really unexpected. When it came to women, Liu Changxi thought that he was quite good at making many women throw themselves at him. However, when he met Qin Sheng, he could only admit defeat. He was a master. Brother Liu, you said that you would look for me in Beijing, but I have never seen you look for me. Do you not treat me as a friend? Qin Sheng deliberately joked on the airport expressway. Liu Changxi, Qin Sheng, and Song Ryu were in the same car. The driver was Liu Changxi's driver. Liu Changxi sat in the front passenger seat, while Qin Sheng and Song Ryu sat in the back. Few people could enjoy such treatment. Liu Changxi sighed with emotion and said, "To be honest, I did go to Beijing several times on the way. However, every time I went there to run some affairs. I went there in a hurry and came back in a hurry. I really don't like coming to Beijing. I still feel comfortable in Xi'an. I am not afraid of offending anyone." "Brother Liu, you are a little unreasonable," Qin Sheng said impatiently. Liu Changxi laughed happily and said, "It is not that I don't want to look for you. I am afraid that you are too busy. I know all the things about your family. How can you take care of me? No matter how busy I am, as long as you call me, I will definitely rush to you immediately. Otherwise, I will feel sorry for all the help you have given me in Xi'an," Qin Sheng said, quite sincerely. Liu Changxi said contentedly, "Okay, as long as you say this, I will take time to look for you in Beijing next time no matter how busy I am. At that time, don't avoid me." "What are you talking about?" Qin Sheng laughed out loud. An hour later, Liu Changxi sent Qin Sheng and the others to the villa of the Lin family in Sujiang. Since the Lin family got back their family property, they had moved back to the villa of the Sujiang mansion. This villa was the one they had lived in for several years. It happened that the owner was short of money and wanted to sell it at a discount. She bought it back because there were too many memories in this family. It was not until Liu Changxi walked him to the gate of the Sujiang mansion that he understood. Liu Changxi followed him and explained it to him. At the same time, he said, "I will leave you alone today. You should accompany Uncle Lin and Annie Wong first. When you are done with your work these 2 days, I will hold a dinner for you. As for the 3 cars, I will leave them to you first. We will contact each other later." After saying this, Lu Changxi said goodbye to Qin Sheng and Song Ruyu and left. After Lu Changxi left, Song Ruyu smiled at Qin Sheng and said, "Lu Changxi is a good friend." It was the first time for Qin Sheng to hear Song Ruyu's evaluation of others. He couldn't help feeling a little surprised. But Lu Changxi was indeed a good friend. Chapter 968. Apart from the relatives of the Qin family and the Zhu family, Lu Changxi should be the first friend Song Ruyu had met after she became Qin Sheng's girlfriend. Unexpectedly, Lu Changxi got a good evaluation. It seemed that Qin Sheng had a good taste in making friends. However, Lu Changxi was worthy of this evaluation. Ever since Qin Sheng had known Lu Changxi had always been helping him. The way they got along with each other was also very tacit. It was not an exchange of equal benefits. Lu Changxi just felt that Qin Sheng was a good friend. Maybe they were a little shrewd at the beginning, but as they got along with each other, those things gradually disappeared. Of course, the premise of their friendship was that they were at the same level. If there was a big gap between them, it would not be so simple. After Lu Changxi left, the 3 cars drove directly into the housing estate and stopped at the gate of the Lin family's villa. Qin Sheng was very familiar with this road. The Lin family had moved here since he was in high school. He was very familiar with the security and property management of the housing estate. Who knew that so many things would happen after he graduated from college? Fortunately, everything had returned to the way it used to be. Before the car stopped, Qin Sheng saw 7 aunts and 8 aunts standing at the gate of the villa, except for Uncle Lin and Annie Wang. He did not expect that so many people would come today. Although these aunts and 7 aunts were not related, Qin Sheng grew up in the Lin family, so he was very familiar with these elders. However, after he went to Shanghai, they did not contact each other. Song Ryu was also a little surprised. Didn't they say that only Qin Sheng's adoptive parents and sister would be there? How come there were so many people all of a sudden? Song Ryu inevitably felt a little nervous. Although it was not a big scene, it was still meaningful. They are relatives and friends of my adoptive parents. They watched me grow up. I guess they heard that I was going to bring you back, so they came to join in the fun. Qin Sheng could only explain in this way. Song Ryu didn't say anything. It was understandable. Most families were like this. For example, the next time Qin Sheng went to her uncle's house, a lot of elders would be waiting there. She guessed that Qin Sheng's mood was similar to hers at the moment. Before Brother Wu opened the door, Qin Sheng got out of the car with Song Ryu. Then, they walked quickly toward Uncle Lin, who was in good spirits, and Annie Wang, who looked younger and younger. Maybe it was because of her mentality. Before Uncle Lin came out, Annie Wang had been under a lot of pressure. Under such pressure, anyone could age easily. Now Uncle Lin had finally come out, and Xian had grown up. As for him, not only had he returned to the Qin family, but he was also getting engaged and getting married. How could he not be happy? Uncle Lin, Annie Wang. After Qin Sheng got out of the car, he quickly walked over and held their hands. He was a little excited. How could Qin Sheng not be excited when facing Uncle Lin and Annie Wang? They had brought him up. He would never forget their kindness. Otherwise, he would not have made such a big fuss about Uncle Lin's matter. Lin, she smiled and nodded. It was thanks to Qin Sheng and the Qin family that he could return to his current state from being a prisoner. How lucky he was that he had agreed to raise Qin Sheng. It was really not good to have good karma. Otherwise, he would still be a prisoner today. It was estimated that it would take him a few years to get out. Sheng-er, you're back. Wang Li could not help hugging her son, who was not her biological son, but was better than her biological son. However, at this moment, the other relatives and elders of the Lin family paid more attention to Song Ryu. They whispered to each other. For example, they said that this girl was really beautiful and that she was a perfect match for Sheng-er. They also said that this girl's family background was not simple. Her elders were all big leaders in Beijing. They also said that this girl's temperament was not ordinary. At first glance, they could tell that she was not an ordinary girl. Sheng-er had good taste. As for the relatives and elders, they loved Qin Sheng's dog. Moreover, they had already known about Qin Sheng's current situation. He was not the little boy they could casually teach at that time. Not to mention that he had grown up now. The most important thing was that he had returned to his biological family, which was far superior to theirs. Think about how much power they had used to solve Lin Shi's matter. Not only did they send those villains to prison, but they also took back those assets. Was this something ordinary people could do? After greeting Uncle Lin and Aunt Wang, Qin Sheng greeted the other elders. Although they had not seen each other for many years, they were still very familiar with each other. After that, Qin Sheng held Song Ruyu's hand and formally introduced her. Uncle Lin, Annie Wang, this is my fiancée, Song Ruyu. I've already told you on the phone. This time, we came back to visit Grandpa and you. Song Ruyu smiled and said generously, Uncle Lin, Aunt Wang. Hello, Uncle and Auntie. The others responded one after another. They were quite satisfied with Qin Sheng's fiancée as soon as they met. A girl from a rich and powerful family was indeed different. Only Qin Sheng could have such a blessing. Their sons could only envy him. Lin Shi and Wang Li had discussed it when Qin Sheng called them and said that he would come back. Although they had met Lin Su and were very satisfied with her and hoped that she could become Qin Sheng's future wife, they could not control many things now. Qin Sheng had already returned to the Qin family. Of course, they had their own reasons for doing this. They believed that Qin Sheng was not that kind of person. Therefore, when Qin Sheng came back with Song Ruyu, they had to pretend to be happy even if they had to. They could not make Song Ruyu feel dissatisfied. Otherwise, it would only cause trouble for Qin Sheng. Lin Shi was still the same as usual. He just smiled and nodded. Wang Li held Song Ruyu's hand and said with a smile, Why is she so beautiful? Our Shenger is so lucky. At this time, the others all laughed and said, Don't let the girls stand at the door. Let's go in and talk. At this time, Lin Shi and Annie Wang led Qin Sheng and Song Ruyu into the villa. The others were busy moving things. Every time the Qin family returned to Xin, they would prepare so many things. After all, the Qin family thought that the Lin family had raised Qin Sheng, and they would never be able to repay this favor. In the living room of the villa, Song Ryu had been surrounded by several female elders as soon as she entered the door. They kept asking her questions, which was what a new daughter-in-law would do when meeting her parents-in-law. Qin Sheng was chatting with several male elders. Lin Shi felt a headache when he saw these things being moved in. He said, Why did you buy so many things? We don't lack anything at home. Uncle Lin, I didn't buy them. Some of them were prepared by the Song family, and the rest were prepared by my aunt. I didn't know that they had prepared so many things. Qin Sheng had to explain honestly. Lin, she said helplessly, They are too polite. Old Lin, they're kind people. Just accept them. We are envious of you. Several elders laughed and joked. Lin, she had no choice. Although he said so, he was quite happy in his heart, because this meant that the Qin family valued him very much. At this time, Qin Sheng seemed to find something. He looked at Lin Shi and frowned. Uncle Lin, where is Xin? Don't mention it. Lin, she felt a headache, and then led Qin Sheng to the balcony. When they were on the balcony, Qin Sheng asked again, Uncle Lin, what happened? Where is Xin? Where else can she be? She didn't come back for Shanghai. She said that she couldn't forgive you and didn't want to see you or your new girlfriend, so she didn't come back. I heard that she went to Lin Su's place. I can't control her. Lin, she explained honestly. Qin Sheng laughed at himself and said, It's not her fault. It's all my fault. I can understand her feelings. Lin Su has been taking care of her these years, and she often spends time with Lin Su. Naturally, she likes Lin Su the most. I suddenly broke up with Lin Su and said that I'm going to get engaged and married. It's hard for her to accept it now. Maybe she will get over it after a while. Have you dealt with Lin Su? Lin, she asked with concern. If possible, he naturally hoped that Qin Sheng wouldn't abandon Lin Su. But how could he get what he wanted? In the end, he could only hope that Qin Sheng wouldn't hurt Lin Su too deeply. Thinking of Lin Su, Qin Sheng felt a headache. He didn't want to and dared not tell anyone about Lin Su's pregnancy. At present, Only Xue Qingyan knew about it. Of course, he had to hide it from Uncle Lin and Aunt Wang. But in order to let them not worry, Qin Sheng could only say, "Let's part on good terms. I owe her, and I'll repay her slowly in this life." Alas, I hope Lin Su won't hate you. Lin, she sighed with emotion. It was really fate that made fools of people. Qin Sheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. How could everything in life go according to plan? No wonder his grandfather had told him that he would have too many luck with women in this life. Now it seemed that it was a prophecy. When he went to visit his grandfather tomorrow, he had to talk to him. If he had known this would happen, he would have found a way to solve it. Lin Shi and Qin Sheng didn't talk for a long time on the balcony. He was afraid that Song Ruyu would be suspicious, so he went back to the living room after a few minutes. Chapter 969. The Lin family's villa in Xujiang Mansion was so lively, which made Qin Sheng feel very relieved. Although the poor were ignored in the downtown area, the rich had distant relatives in the mountains. After Uncle Lin's accident, the Lin family had been very lonely in the past few years, which could be said to have plummeted. After all, Uncle Lin used to be a famous boss in Xian City. Who knew that he was framed, his company went bankrupt, and he became a prisoner. Although these relatives did not make any sarcastic remarks on the surface, no one knew what they said behind his back. After all, most people like to watch others make trouble. However, these people had more or less helped the Lin family when they were in trouble. Qin Sheng had never heard of anyone who disliked the Lin family's mother and daughter. Otherwise, he would have slapped them in the face today. Now, that Qin Sheng had returned to the Qin family, Xi and Xin had been in Shanghai, and Uncle Lin and Annie Wang were quite lonely in Xian. It was actually quite good to have people come and go in the house. As for how Uncle Lin would get along with his former friends and relatives, he thought that he had already seen through it a lot, so there was no need for Qin Sheng to care about it. Song Ryu had been surrounded by 7 aunts and 8 aunts, chatting about daily life. Qin Sheng was somewhat worried that Song Ryu, who always liked quiet and did not like noise, was somewhat unhappy. Although it seemed that Song Ryu was in a good state, Qin Sheng estimated that she was also conflicted in her heart. After all, she had never experienced this before, or perhaps because these were all Qin Sheng's relatives. No matter how uncomfortable Song Ryu was, she had to accept it willingly. Qin Sheng was quite used to chatting with these elders, but no one asked about the Qin family. Maybe it was because Uncle Lin had told them in advance, or maybe it was because most of them were ordinary people, and these things were too far away from them. Even if they knew about it, it was just some one-sided rumors. It was lunchtime, and so many people could not sit down. If there were only Qin Sheng and Song Ryu, it was estimated that Wang Li would have already prepared lunch in the kitchen. Although they had moved into the former home of Xujiang Mansion and hired a nanny and servant, Wang Li had been used to it in recent years. She still preferred to cook and clean by herself. Lin, she said, no matter what. Lin, she had already booked a private room in a good restaurant nearby. Xujiang was a wealthy area in Xian. Naturally, there was no shortage of high-class restaurants. Everyone smiled and set off for the restaurant. At lunchtime, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu toasted to everyone. Of course, he was the one who drank, and Song Ryu was the one who drank. Song Ryu knew how to behave in front of the elders better than anyone else, so no one could find fault with her. As a result, Song Ryu received a lot of red envelopes, which was somewhat unexpected. Qin Sheng explained with a smile. This was the custom in Xian. When meeting the elders for the first time, they would give them red envelopes. Since the elders knew that Qin Sheng had brought Song Ryu back, they had naturally prepared red envelopes. Judging from the thickness of the red envelopes, each person's red envelopes contain at least 1 or 2,000 yuan. After all, these relatives of the Lin family were quite well off. Although they were not rich, they were at least in the middle class. If he wanted to give his girlfriend a red packet, he had to be generous. The thickest red envelopes were naturally given to Lin Shi and Wang Li. Both of them had very auspicious numbers. Wang Li also gave Song Ryu a necklace as a meeting gift. She also smiled and said that it was not worth much and hoped that Song Ryu would like it. Song Ryu quickly took it and said with a smile, Thank you, Annie Wong. When lunch was almost over, the relatives and friends of the Lin family went home, leaving the rest of the time for the Lin family. Qin Sheng and Song Ryu also went back to the villa with Uncle Lin and Annie Wong. Of course, they couldn't stay in the hotel after returning home. Of course, they had to stay at home. Lin Shi and Wang Li dared not to neglect Song Ryu when she came here. On the way back, Song Ryu looked at the pile of red envelopes in her hands and said with a smile, "Who are these red envelopes for? Yours or mine?" "Of course they are yours. You are my new wife." Qin Sheng laughed and said. Song Ryu deliberately joked, "Well, it seems that this trip is not in vain. I made a profit. Will there be such things in the future?" "When did the otherworldly goddess Song become a little money grubber?" Qin Sheng responded. Song Ryu curled her lips and said, "Haven't you heard that a hero can't be defeated by half a cent? Life is not easy." Qin Sheng definitely could not defeat Song Ryu in an argument, so it was better to admit defeat. After returning home, Song Ryu chatted with Uncle Lin and Annie Wong. Qin Sheng made a pot of tea for Uncle Lin to sober up. It was obvious that Uncle Lin was very happy. He had drunk a lot at noon today and probably had not been so happy for a long time. When Qin Sheng came out, Song Ryu happened to say, "Uncle Lin, Annie Wong, Qin Sheng, and I will be officially engaged on the 18th of this month. I would like to invite you to attend our engagement ceremony." Song Ryu had not discussed this matter with Qin Sheng at all. She had taken the initiative to propose it. Qin Sheng was a little surprised, but he was a little touched. Song Ryu's attitude on such a major issue was really impressive. Even Qin Sheng did not take the initiative to invite Uncle Lin and Annie Wong, because he was afraid that the Song family would have a problem with it. As for the Qin family and the Zhu family, they definitely had no problem with it. Lin Shi and Wang Li were a little surprised to hear this. They did not expect that Song Ryu would take the initiative to invite them. However, those who could attend the engagement ceremony of Qin Sheng and Song Ryu were probably the immediate family members of the two families. Most of these immediate family members were leaders. They were just nominal adoptive parents of Qin Sheng, so it seemed a little inappropriate. "Ryu, we know that you mean well, but it's a little inappropriate for us to go, right?" Lin, she said, not taking the opportunity to agree. Otherwise, it would only make people feel that he was taking advantage of the situation, which was a little inappropriate. Wang Li also echoed, "Ryu, your Uncle Lin is right. It's not appropriate for us to go. We are all the elders of your two families. We can go when you get married." Song Ryu insisted, "Uncle Lin, Annie Wong, why is it inappropriate for you to go? I think you are more suitable than anyone else. You have watched Qin Sheng grow up all these years. Naturally, you want to witness our happiness, right? As for other things, you don't have to think so much. I think the elders of our two families will also want you to go." Lin Shi and Wang Li subconsciously looked at Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng knew that it was his turn to speak. He said very simply, "Uncle Lin, Annie Wong, no one is more suitable than you. Ryu also invited you, and I also hope that you can come. You can come when the time comes." Lin Shi and Wang Li looked at each other and thought for a moment. Then they said, "Since the two children have said so, let's go." Therefore, this matter was solved in this way. After going downstairs, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu rested at home for a while. Then they went out to meet up with their friends. They were all their former high school classmates. When they knew that Qin Sheng was coming back, they all called and said that they wanted to get together. Of course, Qin Sheng was embarrassed to refuse them. Otherwise, their relationship, which was already extremely fragile, would be even more fragmented. Although they had conflicts in the past, they used to be friends. Later, they all apologized. Qin Sheng could not hold on to it, unless he did not want these friends anymore. Moreover, Hao Lei and Meng Zhe, the two peacemakers, were there. Although Hao Lei did not come back, he revealed Qin Sheng's whereabouts to Meng Zhe and the others. Otherwise, how could they know that Qin Sheng was coming back? Qin Sheng could not do anything to Hao Lei. At the end of this month, Hao Lei would go to Beijing from Shanghai. At that time, he could continue to work for Qin Sheng. It was estimated that Han Bing would complain about him. When Qin Sheng arrived with Song Ryu, Meng Zhe, Zhao Xian, Wu Hao, and the others were already there. Apart from them, there were also two other friends from high school. Although they did not keep in touch with Qin Sheng later, they were good friends in high school. They heard from Meng Zhe and the others that Qin Sheng was coming back, so they came to join the fun. After all, they had all heard about Qin Sheng from Meng Zhe, Zhao Xian, and Wu Hao. How could they not keep in touch with such a classmate? After all, they were no longer teenagers. In a world of adults, most of their friends had their own goals. There was no doubt about that. Half an hour later, they met in the tea house. When they saw Song Ryu, who was beside Qin Sheng, they had a headache. It seemed that Hao Lei did not mention that Qin Sheng would come with a woman. Moreover, this woman did not seem to be Qin Sheng's girlfriend. They had seen Qin Sheng's girlfriend before. She was a fair-skinned, beautiful, and long-legged young lady from a rich family. She was absolutely like a goddess, which made them envious. But who was this beautiful woman with outstanding temperament today? The main thing was that the comprehensive score of this beautiful woman was definitely not worse than that of Lin Su. Qin Sheng was really popular with women. Therefore, when Qin Sheng introduced Song Ryu, this group of people was instantly stunned, because Qin Sheng introduced her as his fiancée, Song Ryu. What the hell? What about Lin Su? This was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that Su Qin would come later. This was a complete mess. Chapter 970. The beginning of 2020 is really magical. The outbreak of the novel pneumonia has changed a lot of things and changed the fate of many people. At least, I have never experienced a spring festival like this in my life. I hope everyone can pay attention to their protective measures. Don't wait until disaster befalls you and regret it. Especially the readers in Hubei and Wuhan. You must protect yourselves. At the same time, I pay my highest respect to the angels in white and all the staff who are fighting on the front lines of the epidemic. You are the greatest existence. I hope that all of us will be united and get through this crisis as soon as possible. The beginning of 2020 has already been so miserable. I believe that it will only get better and better. Come on, Wuhan. Come on, everyone. When Song Ryu followed Qin Sheng in, Meng Zhe, Zhao Xian, and Wu Hao were muttering, "Who is this beauty?" However, looking at how intimate Qin Sheng was with this beauty, everyone could guess what was going on. However, for most successful men, it was not a big deal to have one or two female confidants. They had seen too many rich men like this. Even most of them were like this. It seemed that not having a few women could not be considered as a capable man. Therefore, they were not surprised at all. Moreover, even if you did not take the initiative to look for them, when you had money and power, beauties would definitely take the initiative to throw themselves at you. There was no doubt about this. How could a man be so strong-willed? He could turn a blind eye to a beauty throwing herself at him once or twice, but he would eventually be beaten up after a long time. Therefore, Meng Zhe, Zhao Xian, and Wu Hao looked at each other and tacitly did not ask anything. They just envied Qin Sheng for having such a beautiful woman. Her appearance and temperament were definitely not that of an ordinary woman. After all, Qin Sheng's current identity was too prominent. However, who would have thought that Qin Sheng would take the initiative to introduce this woman's identity? What shocked them even more was that Qin Sheng actually said that this woman was his fiancée. They had seen Qin Sheng's real girlfriend, Lin Su, who was definitely not inferior to this beautiful woman in front of them. Was Qin Sheng crazy? They could not figure out what was going on. After all, they were not at Liu Changshi's level. Otherwise, they would not think so much. However, at this moment, everyone's attention was not on the identity of this woman, called Song Ryu. What they cared about was how to explain to Su Qin when she arrived. Of course, they knew the relationship between Su Qin and Qin Sheng. It took Su Qin a long time to let go of Qin Sheng completely. This time, when she heard that Qin Sheng was back, she even took the initiative to contact him and said that they should get together. Although they were no longer lovers, they could still become friends after all. After all, if you want to let go of someone completely, you should not avoid him. Even if you met him, you should be indifferent to him. At that time, They even explained to Su Qin that Qin Sheng might bring his girlfriend back. Weren't you afraid of being embarrassed at that time? Su Qin took the initiative to say that she had met Qin Sheng's girlfriend, Lin Su, a long time ago. Although she envied Lin Su for being able to have Qin Sheng, she also felt that Lin Su was outstanding enough and deserved to have Qin Sheng. They were indeed a good match. However, if Su Qin came and saw Song Ruyu, Qin Sheng's so-called fiancé, what would she do? What would she think of Qin Sheng? Would they think that Qin Sheng was a scumbag who cheated their feelings? She had once been so infatuated with Qin Sheng. After hearing Qin Sheng's introduction, everyone was a little nervous. They were thinking about how they should introduce Su Qin to Su Qin, or whether they should tell Qin Sheng in advance that Su Qin would come in a while, or whether they should stop Su Qin from coming later. After greeting Song Ruyu with a smile, everyone sat down. Mengzhe asked the tea artist of the tea house to come over and make tea. However, Song Ruyu smiled and said that she should do it. She knew a little about tea art. Hearing this, everyone felt a little embarrassed. After all, it was not good to let a beauty serve them on their first meeting. However, since Qin Sheng said that he should let Song Ruyu do it, everyone felt relieved. After Song Ruyu asked them what kind of tea they would like to drink, she went to choose the tea leaves. She was really proficient in tea art. For her, as long as she was willing to learn something, it was just a matter of time. Therefore, she had long been familiar with which year and where the tea leaves were better and which tea master was better. At this moment, Qin Sheng was greeting the two classmates whom he had not seen for a long time. They had not seen each other for a long time. If Mengzhe had not suddenly told them that Qin Sheng was back, they would have almost forgotten this classmate whom they had not contacted for a long time. After all, Qin Sheng had disappeared for so many years. Even when he came back later, he only contacted Hao Lei and the others. This was how feelings were. No matter how good the feelings were, if they did not keep in touch with each other all the time, they would eventually forget each other. It was impossible to keep in touch with each other for the sake of others. Even if one liked a person and kept giving silently, he would eventually give up. Therefore, sometimes, to manage a relationship or friendship, both parties had to work together. One could not let one person give up blindly. At this moment, Mengzhe, Zhao Xian, and Wu Hao were chatting in the WeChat group, discussing how to deal with this matter. Zhao Xian and Wu Hao wanted to find a way to stop Su Qin from coming over. Otherwise, it would be really embarrassing. Even if they were not embarrassed, Su Qin would be completely hurt. Mengzhe thought about it over and over again. In the end, he felt that it was better to let Su Qin do it. Su Qin could not let go of Qin Sheng all the time. They were also quite worried about this. Now, they finally gave Su Qin a chance to completely end this relationship. Wasn't it better? Wu Hao and Zhao Xian thought it was a bit cruel. Even if they could let Su Qin end her relationship with Qin Sheng, if they did not let Qin Sheng know, would Qin Sheng be angry? After all, it was not easy for them to ease their relationship. They could not let any accidents happen again. Now, none of them could afford to offend Qin Sheng. In the future, all of them would have to rely on Qin Sheng. Mengzhe thought for a while and said, "I will let Qin Sheng know later and see what he thinks." At this moment, Su Qin had already set off. They did not have much time left. Song Ruyu happened to go to pick tea leaves and had not come back yet. Mengzhe braced himself, looked at Qin Sheng, and said, "Qin Sheng, I forgot to tell you something. It did not occur to us that you would bring your fiancé here." Qin Sheng did not think much and replied directly, "What is it first?" Mengzhe had been prepared for Qin Sheng to be angry or scold him. Anyway, this matter had to be told now. Otherwise, there would be problems later. Consequently, Mengzhe gritted his teeth and said, "Su Qin will come later. She heard that you came back and said that she wanted to see you. However, she is just a friend. I hope you don't think too much about it. It did not occur to us that you would bring your fiancé back. Su Qin does not know about this. I'm afraid that she will be embarrassed when she comes later. So I want to tell you first. If you think it is inappropriate, we will figure out a way to stop Su Qin from coming." After a few seconds of silence, he finally made up his mind and said, "Mengzhe, although Su Qin and I have broken up, I will meet her whenever she wants to see me. No matter where I am, we are still friends. So you don't have to say anything more. Let her come here. You don't have to worry about the rest of the things. Meng just said with a smile. After hearing this, everyone was instantly relieved. However, what did Qin Sheng mean by making such a decision? Was he not afraid that Su Qin would meet Song Ruyu? Was he not afraid that Su Qin would be sad? Was he not afraid that she would ruin her image in Su Qin's heart? Was he not afraid that Song Ruyu would have a problem with him? Everyone was somewhat confused. At this time, Song Ruyu had already come back. They did not dare to talk about these things anymore. They could only smile and change the topic. However, the atmosphere was somewhat awkward. The tea leaves here are not bad. I chose the relatively good Pu Ira tea. How about you try it first? Song Ruyu began to make tea skillfully. Making Pu Ira tea was relatively simple, without too many complicated procedures. However, at this time, everyone was silent. Song Ruyu felt a little strange and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Wu Hao braced himself and said, "In front of such a beautiful woman, we are a little nervous. We are afraid that we will say something wrong." However, at the same time, Zhao Xian said, "We are thinking about what to eat tonight." The donkey's lips did not match the horse's mouth. They looked at each other and felt a little embarrassed. They did not know what to say for a while. Song Ruyu didn't think much of it. She burst out laughing. At this time, the door of the private room was opened by the waiter. He said with a smile, "Sorry for disturbing you. Your friend has arrived." Then, Su Qin in a black dress walked in slowly. She was still so beautiful and stunning. Su Qin was still Su Qin. The moment Song Ruyu saw Su Qin, she instantly understood what had happened just now. They must have been talking about Su Qin. That was why they were a little embarrassed when they saw her. As for Su Qin, when she pushed the door open and saw the beautiful woman beside Qin Sheng, she was instantly stunned. She looked confused. Who was this beautiful woman? She thought that Lin Su might also come back. They did not get to know each other formally last time. This time, it was time to take the initiative to get to know each other. As for the others, they did not even dare to breathe loudly. They just wanted to see how Qin Sheng would deal with this. Finally, let's talk about some trivial matters. This spring festival is really boring. No one dares to leave home. No one dares to go out for a stroll. But God still wants to continue teasing us. It's boring enough, but he still wants to make us sad. Just yesterday, my favorite idol, Kobe, died in a plane accident. I believe he is also the idol of many people. When I woke up and saw the news, I did not come to my senses for a long time. Until now, I still do not want to believe this fact. From the time I played basketball in junior high school to now, Kobe has accompanied me throughout my youth. I remember that in high school, I quarreled with my parents many times because I wanted to play for the school team. In the end, I clenched my teeth and persisted. Although I'm not the teenager who chased the wind anymore, I still like Kobe in basketball. So I started updating yesterday, but I have been refreshing the news and watching TikTok. I cannot accept this fact no matter how hard I try. I feel that everything is really magical. I really do not know how to spend this year. Chapter 971. The epidemic is getting more and more serious. I hope everyone can protect themselves and the epidemic will end soon. Otherwise, it will affect the fate of many people. Though Qin Sheng and Su Qin were no longer lovers, they were still friends after all. Consequently, when Meng Zhe, Zhao Xian, and Wu Hao said that Su Qin would come, Qin Sheng did not object to it. Though they felt that it might be awkward if Su Qin came, Qin Sheng still insisted. To say the least, if Su Qin hadn't given up on him yet, she might have given up on him after this meeting. That was because even Qin Sheng himself felt that he was an irresponsible man. No matter what the reason was, he had abandoned Lin Su and chosen Song Ruyu in the end. As for Su Qin, she had seen Lin Su before. She could totally accept that Qin Sheng chose to forget her because of Lin Su. After all, time would change a lot of things. Their relationship had been forgotten during the 2 years when Qin Sheng disappeared. Since Qin Sheng already had someone he liked, it was naturally impossible for him to return her side. But now, Qin Sheng had given up on Lin Su, whom he liked, and found another beauty. Su Qin could not accept this at all. because Qin Sheng's position in her heart would collapse completely. She liked Qin Sheng in the past, not the current Qin Sheng. Naturally, she would give up on Qin Sheng. If Su Qin had already let go of Qin Sheng, there was no need to say anything. Their meeting was just a meeting between friends. As long as both of them could face it calmly, there would be no problem. In that case, it was Qin Sheng's business who he would choose to be with. Even if Su Qin knew that Qin Sheng had abandoned Lin Su and found another girlfriend, she would not say anything. At most, she would despise Qin Sheng for being a scumbag in her heart. She was just blind once. In the future, they would not meet again. This was Qin Sheng's idea. However, at this moment, Song Ruyu was the most interesting one. She recognized Su Qin at a glance. When she was resting in the Lin family, she happened to see the album about Su Qin left by Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng had already forgotten these things. Naturally, he did not have time to deal with them. Maybe he did not need to deal with them. After all, these were all stories of the past. Therefore, although Song Ruyu had never seen Su Qin before, she recognized her at a glance. Although Su Qin had changed a little and was more beautiful and elegant than before, some basic things could not be changed. No wonder the atmosphere of those men's conversation just now was not right. It turned out that they were talking about Su Qin. Song Ruyu, who was smart, quickly figured out the ins and outs of the problem. That was, Qin Sheng did not mention that he would bring her back, and they did not tell Qin Sheng that Su Qin was coming. Therefore, when they saw her, they were a bit flustered. They were afraid that Su Qin would come and the scene would be awkward. She guessed that they were talking about this issue just now. But now that Su Qin was here, what should he do? No one said anything. They just looked at Qin Sheng, Song Ruyu, and Su Qin. This meeting was different from the last time when Su Qin and Lin Su met. After all, there was nothing special at that time. This time, Song Ruyu and Su Qin met. Of course, the meaning was different, because Song Ruyu appeared as Qin Sheng's fiancé. Secondly, Song Ruyu was Qin Sheng's new love, not his old love, Lin Su. Song Ruyu looked at Su Qin with interest. Obviously, Su Qin had dressed up carefully today. After all, she was meeting Qin Sheng. She wore a black lace dress, which was sexy and charming. Her slightly curly hair was a little mature, which was exactly the type that men liked most. As for her appearance, needless to say, she was Qin Sheng's ex-girlfriend. Even in Beijing, she would be a great beauty. As for the temperament, a woman's temperament came from her family. The Su family was a little famous in Xian City. Su Qin's father's company could be ranked among the top 50 private enterprises in the province. It could be imagined that the daughter cultivated by such a family was very expensive. If Qin Sheng was just an ordinary poor boy, people might think that he was a toad who ate swan meat. If the Lin family had not been in trouble and had steadily developed as before, its status should be similar to that of the Su family now. In this case, Su Qin and Qin Sheng would be a talented man and a beautiful woman. It would also be a good story. However, Qin Sheng left Xin, experienced a lot of things, met Lin Su, and then returned to the Qin family. As a result, many things changed. At this time, Su Qin was also looking at Song Ruyu. At first, she thought that Song Ruyu was a tea artist in the tea house, but she had never seen such a beautiful tea artist. She often came here, which had become a stronghold for them. After all, the environment was good, and the most important thing was that it was close to her home. In addition, Song Ruyu did not wear the Cheongsam uniform of the tea house. Naturally, she was not a tea artist in the tea house. After a little observation, Su Qin realized that the relationship between this beauty and Qin Sheng was not simple. Why didn't she suspect others? That was because she knew others relatively well. She had never seen Meng Zhe, Zhao Xian, and Wu Hao have such friends. In addition, even if they had friends, they would not bring them to meet Qin Sheng. So in the end, it could only be Qin Sheng. When everyone was waiting for Qin Sheng to introduce them, Song Ruyu took the initiative to stand up and walked over slowly. She smiled and said, "You must be Su Qin. I'm Qin Sheng's fiancé. My name is Song Ruyu. I heard Qin Sheng talk about you." Except for Qin Sheng, everyone present was a little surprised that Song Ruyu actually recognized Su Qin. but then they felt relieved. Maybe Qin Sheng had already told Song Ruyu about what had happened in the past, but they did not know how he told Song Ruyu about Su Qin. Qin Sheng was also a little surprised, but he did not know whether to laugh or cry. Song Ruyu was still Song Ruyu. Most of the time, she would take the initiative. Hearing the opening words of this beauty called Song Ruyu in front of her, Su Qin was somewhat stunned. Qin Sheng's fiancé? How could it be possible? She had seen Qin Sheng's girlfriend before. Lin Su, a daughter of a wealthy family in Zhejiang, was better than her in all aspects. When did Song Ruyu appear? What about Lin Su? Could it be? Su Qin thought of a possibility, but she felt it was a little funny. Was it necessary? She glared at Qin Sheng, who was standing over there. In the eyes of others, this look meant that Su Qin might be angry. After Su Qin came to herself, she took the initiative to shake hands with Song Ruyu and said, "Hello." There was not too much greeting and politeness. After all, they did not know each other and were not familiar with each other. Moreover, Su Qin had subconsciously given Song Ruyu an identity. Song Ruyu was also surprised by Su Qin's reaction. It seemed that Su Qin didn't have much of a reaction. For most women, if they saw their ex-husband with their current husband, they would definitely be very hostile. Even if they hid it well, they would still be able to see it. However, Su Qin didn't have any reaction. Could it be that Su Qin had really let go of Qin Sheng? Or was Su Qin very generous? Song Ruyu did not think about it anymore. She smiled and pulled Song Ruyu to sit down. She took the initiative to pour a cup of tea for Su Qin and said with a smile that the tea tasted good. Su Qin did not like drinking tea. Maybe it was because she had stayed in Shanghai for a long time. She had drank 2 cups of coffee every day. Even after she came back, she still did so. Therefore, she did not know much about tea. She just smiled and nodded. Because of the presence of Song Ruyu and Su Qin, the others were too embarrassed to continue the conversation. They felt that it would be awkward if they did not talk about anything. Who knew how the 2 goddesses, Song Ruyu and Su Qin, would fight against each other openly and secretly? They really envied Qin Sheng. If any ordinary person had one of the 2 goddesses, he would probably wake up with a smile, even in his dreams. After a few minutes, Su Qin also felt that the atmosphere was a little uncomfortable. She looked at Qin Sheng and said, "Come out. I have something to say to you." Qin Sheng was stunned for a moment. What did Su Qin want to do? After all, Song Ruyu was here. If Su Qin wanted to do something, Qin Sheng had to worry about Song Ruyu's feelings. However, Su Qin looked at Song Ruyu and said, "I want to borrow Qin Sheng for a few minutes. Do you mind?" When Su Qin said this, she did not care about Song Ruyu's answer at all. Even if Song Ruyu refused, she would pull her out. However, Song Ruyu said generously, "I don't mind." So Su Qin stood up and walked out of the box first. Qin Sheng glanced at Song Ruyu, who looked a little playful. Qin Sheng had to bite the bullet and leave. Otherwise, Song Ruyu would think that he was guilty. When Qin Sheng walked out of the terrace outside the tea house, Su Qin was already waiting for him there. When Qin Sheng approached, Su Qin slowly turned around and folded her arms in front of her chest. She smiled elegantly and said, "Is she your friend from Beijing?" "Yes, she is beautiful and elegant. I guess she is from a big family." Qin Sheng was stunned for a few seconds. He did not know what Su Qin meant. He just nodded slightly and said, "Our families are friends." "No wonder," Su Qin replied with a smile. Then she said, "Actually, you don't have to do this. I have already let you go. I really have. We could be ordinary friends from now on, as long as you want. So you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to find a friend to play this role. Do you understand?" Qin Sheng did not understand at first, but he understood what Su Qin meant. Song Ruyu was just a person she found to play for her. The reason was to let her completely let go. Qin Sheng was a little surprised. "Is she really my fiancée? Do you think I believe that? What about Lin Su? Are you willing to give up Lin Su? I know you. You are not that kind of person." Su Qin shook her head and smiled bitterly. Qin Sheng did not want to lie to Su Qin. He told the truth. "I have broken up with Lin Su. Song Ruyu is really my fiancée. If you don't believe me, you can ask Meng Zhe." "Do I need to ask? I guess you have colluded long ago. I was wondering why Meng Zhe, Zhao Xian, and Wu Hao asked me to come here and you just came back. It turns out that this is the reason. Su Qin laughed at herself. Qin Sheng wanted to cry, but had no tears. Why did Su Qin not believe it? Who could invite Song Ruyu to come to she in a play? The appearance fee was probably sky high. How can you believe it? Qin Sheng was speechless. Su Qin said directly, I believe it. Qin Sheng was confused again. Why did she believe it again? Just when Qin Sheng was puzzled, Su Qin continued to say, well, you can continue to accompany your fiancé. It's not appropriate for me to stay here. You can chat first. I have something to do and have to leave. Let's get together next time. After saying this, Su Qin turned around and left in a natural and unrestrained manner. She did not give Qin Sheng any chance to explain. Qin Sheng stood where he was and felt a little confused. What was going on? Why was it so messy? He really did not know what was on Su Qin's mind. Of course, he did not know what was on Su Qin's mind. For Su Qin, it did not matter who this woman was. No matter whether it was Song Ruyu or Lin Su, it was impossible for Qin Sheng to come back to her. She had completely lost Qin Sheng. Consequently, all of this did not matter to her. Consequently, she could only continue to move forward with smile and walk her own path. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.